Good morning. How are you? Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Megan Fox. I am an investigative journalist and broadcaster and author, and I write at pjmedia.com. And today it's True Crime Tuesday. Who's ready for True Crime Tuesday? I know I am. We haven't talked about some of these issues in a while, and we are going to check in on the Brian Kohberger case, the Idaho 4. If you are not familiar with this case, we've been following it here pretty closely, and when the trial starts, we'll be doing that too. All right, let's get to it. This is so bizarre, you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this stream out. And I see the numbers are building here, so maybe I'll wait for a second before we get to the Brian Kohberger updates, because I want everybody to hear them. So in the meantime, I have ordered my merch for my samples, and I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to get them. They're not here yet, but if you want to go to the merch store, you're going to find the coolest stuff there ever, because Linux Charms, who is one of our regular listeners, Meredith, she has designed all this new stuff. And I'm going to show it to you right now, if I can get over there. Hey, Rumble, what's up over there? We are streaming live on Rumble and YouTube and Facebook. I think one person watches us on Facebook. So I keep going. I keep doing it. I keep doing it for Tracy. You know what? Here's to you, Tracy, for hanging on to Facebook this long. I don't think anybody else watches besides Tracy, which is hilarious to me. This stream is exclusively for Tracy on Facebook. Facebook is like, I don't know what it became, like the place where people just where grandmas go, right? It's not really a place that everybody goes anymore. Twitter is really the hop and spot. Although lately, it's really on my last nerve with the oh, you can't automatically upload tweets anymore. No, thank you. Yes, I am on Rumble right now as well. If you guys are looking for the Rumble link, I can drop it for you in the chat. Guess what? There's news and updates coming to Rumble. Did you know about this? Rumble put out on Twitter yesterday that their chat function is about to get way better. They're adding emojis and I don't know, other stuff that is supposed to make it great. I guess I should know what other stuff. Someone tagged me on Twitter yesterday. And Rumble did make, let me see if I can find it, because that would be a good announcement for you guys to know. Because everybody's always complaining about the Rumble chat. So let's find them on Twitter, because they made this announcement yesterday and somebody tagged me in it. Update number 2. Okay, update number 1. The web version of Rumble live chats now includes avatars, username colors, chat pop-up, and emojis, all coming very soon. And also, update number 2, the Rumble live chats will also soon include supporter integration with locals, because we are on locals right now too. We have a live chat going on there. This is a very important feature that we are working on as well. How exciting is that? So those of you who are in the locals chat, if anybody's over there right now, welcome to the program. Those of you on locals, meganfox.locals.com. It is the fun place to be. And after today's stream, and it's going to depend on what time we finish, we will be doing a locals exclusive movie with Meg. I'm going to start watching the documentary, The Confessions. I think that's what it's called. It's taped confessions where people were basically framed for crimes. And we're going to start watching that together, but only on my locals. So you got to be a subscriber on locals. And if you're on Rumble right now, you can just hit that little red button and it'll take you right to my locals channel. I would also love to see Rumble take over YouTube and give YouTube the finger. Right now, I have a strike against my account. Still figuring out what to do about that. It's a copyright strike, and I'm working on it. Okay. All right. Let's get to oh, I was going to show you the store. So there's new stuff in the store, and it's so great. I just ordered a bunch of it. Here we go. Add to screen. Oh, for fox's sake. There's so much fun stuff in here, you guys. There's my new logo on t-shirts, on sweatshirts, on hoodies, bitch switch material, flip it and find out. Then we've got the logo on black, which is really cool. We've got a really cool Julian Assange quote that goes on t-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs. The Julian Assange quote is really cool. It says, if journalism is good, it is controversial by nature. I love that. And it's true, which is why all the big mainstream media, can go suck eggs because they're terrible and all they do is carry the narrative for Democrats in power, which is just a terrible thing to do. That's not journalism. You need to question those in power. Here's another one with the fox and the glasses that I love. It says just right. This also comes in notebooks and all kinds of stuff. And there's mugs, for fox's sake. There's all kinds of fun things. There's drinkware. Oh, and there's a new one. There's a Make Americans Friends Again, but for some reason it doesn't pop up in the store. Where is it? Mm, it's new. It's Meredith. I went in there today to find out where it went, and I can see it, but for some reason it's not active in the store. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Anyway, head over there. The merch store is really fun. I will drop the link for you. There's tons and tons of stuff. If you like this program and you want to support it, we will. That's a great way to do it. I'm dropping that in the chat, and I will say I have ordered the T-shirts from Teespring before, and I really like them. I love the sweatshirts. They're very soft inside. They're like the good kind, So I'm going to drop that in the chat for you guys. I'm going to head over to Locals chat and do that too. Are you watching on Locals? Who's on Locals right now? Looks like Locals is pretty quiet, but that's okay. We have so much to get to. We've got Idaho murder updates, Brian Koberger, and then at 12 o'clock in today's program is a Dr. John Euler, and he is a psychologist. Let me tell you, he is a licensed professional counselor, a certified clinical trauma professional, and a certified sex offender treatment provider. Uh, he is he has done incredible work with sex offenders. He has terrific information on sex offenders and why they behave the way they do. And he's going to be with us at 12 o'clock. But before we get to that, let's get to this New York Post article that I can't even believe. I have so many feelings about this. You just won't even believe it. All right, here we go. All right. Come on now. Surviving roommate thought noise from Idaho killings was partying, says report. Now, you guys, when we read the arrest affidavit, remember the story of the surviving roommate, was that she was scared. She was frozen in terror. And that's why she didn't call police. That she was frozen in terror, couldn't move. And I was buying that story. And now for some reason there's another story coming out. So let's look at it. Let's read it. A survivor of the University of Idaho killings allegedly thought sounds from her 4 roommates being brutally slain was just noisy partying and may have passed out after running into accused killer Brian Koberger. Dylan Mortensen, 21, allegedly called out to her friends to quiet down after she mistook the commotion for partying, a source close to the case told News Nation. Now, I guess we should take this with a grain of salt, because that's not what the arrest affidavit said. The arrest affidavit said that she didn't say she called out and told them to be quiet. Didn't it say that she just was looking outside of her door? Like, she didn't report calling out to anyone. So this could be false. I mean, who's the source? Let's go to I'm going to click the link to see who the source is. It was on Ashley Banfield. So let's see what the original source is. A source spoke directly with surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen, who allegedly yelled about noises heard during the killings because she mistook it for partying. Mortensen allegedly first heard noises around 4 a.m. She opened her door and yelled, "Calm down, you're being loud and I'm trying to sleep." Then she closed her door and locked it, according to the source. Well, that isn't the story that she told the police, and that doesn't mean that Mortensen was lying, by the way. It just means that somebody got some story and told it to the media. Who knows if it's true? Later in the night, Mortensen heard more loud noises, so she opened her door. She saw the killer walking down the hall but wasn't frightened. She assumed he was a guest of the other roommates there partying, according to the source. That's not the story she told the police, so I would be surprised if this were true. Should we hear what Banfield has to say about it?
Tell you, it certainly does give a little bit more perspective as to why she didn't call 911 right away, perhaps. We're told that Dylan actually mistook the noises that she'd been hearing. Remember, the affidavit said that around 4 a.m., she could hear some noises up on the third floor, thought it was maybe, Kaylee playing with the dog, Murphy. Didn't think a lot more than that. But ultimately, a few moments later, she heard a lot of noises. She opened her door and effectively kind of yelled out to her roommates, calm down, like cut it out, keep it down. You guys are being loud. I'm trying to sleep. It's late, thinking that there were roommates horsing around, that perhaps all that noise that she was hearing was just them, being boisterous and still in party mode. It was late, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. So she then closed her door and went back to bed, but within minutes, perhaps sort of roused again by noise, opens the door again,
Yeah, I this
was
is
going to
not
say
the
something
story,
again.
though. This is not the story, though, that police had. So I don't know how accurate this source is, and maybe this is just the media loves to keep this stuff in the media. If there's nothing to report, they just make stuff up. Like that's not out of the not out of the realm of possibility. Let me tell you. Hold on, Mr. Fox is texting me. I need to respond. I had quite a morning. I had to take my kid to urgent care this morning because she's not getting better. Hold on. Okay. Anywho, um, these new details slightly contradict initial reports. No kidding. In the affidavit released in January, police said a roommate heard noises inside the house and opened the door to find a man clad in black clothing and a mask with bushy eyebrows. The witness stood in frozen shock phase. The man walked toward the back sliding glass door and she locked herself in her room. She said she did not recognize him, according to the affidavit. Um, Additional details released last week shed light on how the killings unfolded. Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan were killed first. Okay, we know all of this. Is there anything new? Yes, this is another thing that we just learned. Brian Koberger was actually fired as a teaching assistant. Um, and that was reported. Hold on, let's go over there. This is in News Nation again, Ashley Banfield. He was allegedly fired from his position as a teaching
I think
assistant.
it's important because
What?
in the Idaho murder case, there's
Hold
been a
on.
lot of focus
You guys hear that,
on
or
the
is it just my
chief
headphones?
defendant in the case, Brian Koberger.
Something's
And now
talking.
we are
Stop
learning a
talking,
few things
Ashley.
were happening
Ah,
in that man.
I hate it when that happens. All right. When was he fired, though? Was this before he got caught or after? Because obviously, if he got fired after, that would make sense. Um, there's no details on when. What kind of a news story is this, Ashley? News Nation has exclusively learned that Idaho killing suspect Brian Koberger was allegedly fired from his position as a teaching assistant at Washington State University. No where, no when, nothing. Nothing. Uh, Hold on. Mr. Fox is still. We need to tell Mr. Fox to stop texting me because I'm on the air. Hold on. All right. I have to tell you why. So now he's accusing me of being shady. Wait, this is funny. This morning, hold on. Oh my God. This morning I had to get a P.O. box because I don't like there's a million reasons why I need an address where people can send me things that is not my home. But I didn't tell him I just got one. And he's like, "What do you need that for, shady?" It's not shady. Actually, what happened is yesterday, a potential advertiser contacted me to perhaps do an ambassador program to have a promo code for their product, and they wanna send me their product. But, like, I don't even wanna send them my address, like, I just want it to send somewhere, and I could send it to my lawyer, but I don't wanna annoy her. So I just got a PO box, and I forgot to tell him, and now he thinks that I'm up to shady stuff. Fanboy, no, it's not for fanboy mail. Ah, ah. Actually, this potential advertiser is really cool though. It's for like luxury pens, and since I'm a writer, I still write with pen, and I don't respond to these things usually because I haven't seen one that I thought was a product that I would actually use because I don't really want to partner with anybody if it's a product I'm not going to actually use. Um, if it's something that I like, though, and it's cool, yeah, I'll absolutely do it. Well, these pens look really cool. They're not cheap though. They're pricey. They're pricey. And so they want to send me one. Uh what? All right. Anyway, I don't know why he's still texting me. I probably need to tell him that I'm on the air. I can't talk. All right. Anyway. Um, oh yeah, the pens are really cool, you guys. They said they would send me one, and then I told them that I would think about it. And if it's cool and I like it, I will actually do it. Hold on. Husbands, man. He's cracking me up. For getting new shirts. I should tell him that it's for getting new shirts. That's funny. Sorry, guys. Talk amongst yourselves. Another place. Yeah, maybe people I don't know. Okay. All right. Um, Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. It is Valentine's Day, and what are we talking about today? Sex offenders. It's perfect. It's the perfect Valentine's Day topic. All right, moving on. Let's get over to what we're actually going to get into with Dr. Euler. Um, so check this out. The public is very against putting transgender rapists into. Oh, and by the way, just a reminder, obviously, this stream is going to be demonetized because I'm going to be using all the words that they don't like. And it's just a reminder to visit the merch store, send a super chat or send a super sticker if you can. And wait, is my camera freezing? Hold on. All right, there we go. I got to shut down some of these windows. All right, I can get rid of Coburger. The Daily Mail always makes my computer run slow because there's too many windows that pop open. Okay, here we go. Check this out. The transgender prison experiment uncovered. Male to female inmates in women's cell blocks drive rising numbers of rapes and abuse. Oh, you don't say. You really? Geez, that's shocking information. I would never have guessed that putting men in women's prisons would lead to rape. You're kidding me. What? Um, okay, get this. Mm. Women's rights groups are warning of ever more male to female trans detainees serving time in women's prisons despite rising incidents of rape and other horrors in what were once women only cell blocks. They point to more cases of trans women, including powerful individuals with penises who are attracted to females. Sexually abusing and harassing women, inmates in New York, Illinois, California, New Jersey, Washington, and beyond. A full picture of trans prisoners is not available. Well, that's convenient. But data obtained by thedailymail.com from federal and California officials indicates more trans male to female inmates, more transfer requests, and more pressure on wardens to approve them. Isn't it interesting that we don't have the numbers of how many there actually are? Curious. Some transfer requests are made in good faith, but by lowering entry requirements, officials are letting some fakers serve their time in cushier women's wings where they can imperil female inmates. After fierce debates about trans athletes competing in sports contests and doling out puberty blockers to teens, assigning natal males to women's prisons is becoming the next flashpoint in America's culture wars. Now, look at this. According to some numbers they found, there's 1,143 federal trans male to female prisoners in 2022. 45.9%, so almost half, have a history of a sex offense. And I'm sure that was against women. If 1% of prisoners in the US identify as trans and are housed accordingly, then 15% of inmates in women's prisons would be natal males. And 86% of all women prisoners are already victims of sexual violence. Can you believe this? Way to put the, why is it not sharing? Shoot, I'm sharing the wrong page. Sorry, guys. I didn't go down to the, here we go. Here's the, I have it open in two spots. All right, now you can see it. Look at this. 86% of women prisoners are already victims of sexual violence. Way to put a vulnerable population at more risk. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with the people in charge that they would put sex offenders, literally sex offenders, into a female population? I mean, it's impossible to understand. Yeah. And Famous says, apparently we need trans prisons. Well, here's what I don't understand. Here, I have the perfect solution. I have the solution for this. In the male prisons, there's all these separate buildings everywhere. Have a cell block for trans prisoners. Keep them separate from the other population. Give them, these days, prisons are all pods anyway. It's a pod system now. They're not set up the way that they used to be. So what you have is like a building that houses, let's say, 50 prisoners. And they have cells along the outside. It's outsides of this like rectangular or circular building. Okay, so all the cells are on the outside, and in the morning they open the doors, and everybody just kind of mills around in the common area. The common area is in the middle of this building, and there's tables and couches, and there's card tables, and this is where they have lunch and stuff. Like, they never need to leave this building. They consider it safer. I guess it works out better for the prisoners. And why in the hell would you not just designate one of those buildings in the male prison to house the male prisoners who think they're females? Why would you put them with women? It's ridiculous. I'm still coughing. I'm sorry. I mean, there are easy solutions to this that the people in charge simply do not want to deal with. They just don't want to do. They just don't want to do. All right, going back to the article. Hold on. They're just choosing not to do it. Really. It's too easy. I mean, seriously, can you think of anything wrong with my solution? is there anything wrong with my solution? The trans prisoners would not be subject to male violence, right? Because they would be completely separated from the men, and they would have their own building that they would never have to leave. I mean, it makes no sense. Yeah, and it's I am not yawning. I am coughing. I swear. Yeah, it's just They don't want to do it. And yes, spirit matter, I think that they go into women's facilities for the validation. It's a sexual fetish for a lot of them, and this is part of it. This is part of it. Yes, today's guest is coming at 12 o'clock. It's Dr. John Euler, and he is a professional in sex criminology. He is a counselor. He has been in many prison situations. He's been in prisons interviewing sex offenders, and he has a very good point of view on this topic in particular. He knows all about autogynephilia, which is what we are talking about here. Men who are turned on by dressing as women, by forcing themselves into women's spaces like prisons in order to sexually abuse women. Trans male to female detainees should serve their prison sentence in women's prisons, sharing a cell with a woman. Do you agree? Look at this. Look at this. Strongly agree, 38.2%. Wait. What? How is that worded? Trans male to female detainees should serve their prison sentence in women's prisons, sharing a cell with a woman. Do you agree? Sorry, I read it wrong. Strongly disagree. Okay, so 38% strongly disagree, 10% somewhat disagree. So you've got 40%, 48%, almost 50 who are in disagreement with this. The public is apparently against letting trans women into women's prisons, but as we have daily proof, it doesn't matter what the public thinks about anything. The people in charge are going to do whatever they want, regardless of what we think. Tamika Johnson, 43, a former highway patrol officer who was jailed for 50 years for murdering her abusive husband, is among oh, that's terrible. She got 50 years for murdering an abuser? Is among 5 prisoners suing over a California law, oh, good for her, that gives trans inmates the right to choose either men's or women's facilities. Thanks to that law, Johnson in court papers described sharing the block with a gigantic, tall, physically scary looking, non feminine, bizarre, and creepy trans inmate at the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. She calls the individual one of the pretenders among an influx of phony trans women detainees causing social and cultural changes there since Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom signed the Senate bill into law in 2020. In May, a trans inmate took a woman detainee into a portable toilet in the yard and raped her, while another kept lookout, she claims. The perpetrator then threatened to rape others. Nowadays, she suffers panic attacks. It is not bigoted to ask for sex separated facilities when I am changing, showering, sleeping, and using the toilet, she says in testimony. We have a right to insist on accommodations that give some privacy and dignity. Across the U.S., other high-profile cases include Ramel Blount, a trans male to female detainee at Rikers Island who goes by the name of Diamond Blount, who in February raped an unsuspecting woman prisoner after she finished showering in the women's section of the violence-plagued New York facility. A trans convict in Illinois, Janiyah Monroe, formerly Andre Patterson, was accused of raping several women inmates in a female prison. Several, folks, several. They didn't stop it after the first one. They didn't stop. No, several. Several. Wow. Whatever's happening in the chat, I've missed it totally. I know you guys are like, thank God she's not paying attention to the chat. I don't even want to know. How are you doing over on Rumble, guys? I'll go check on your comments over there. Yeah, Happy Little Tree says it's more shocking that 20% strongly agree. The 20% are probably trans people. Okay? Or they oversampled Democrat wine moms who want everyone to believe that they're just the greatest people on earth. Oh god. I love my Rumble peeps. How's the locals chat doing? For all the words. Thank you, Cass. Thank you, Ashley. I got your tip. I see you in locals. By the way, join me at meganfox.locals.com. We have a live chat going over there, and it's always fun. And we're going to be watching true crime on Netflix today on locals. And if you are a local subscriber, you will get to join me there. So sign up right now so you'll get the notification for when it is happening. All right. Oh, I just got an email from locals. What did he say? Oh, I already opened that. Never mind. All right, anyway, let's get back to it. Oh, I didn't check out the comments on YouTube. Do I dare? Oh, let's see. In California. Okay. Hold on, I just got a message from Dr. John Euler. Let's see if he's on his way. He should be. He sent me some slides that we're going to look at. Okay, cool. Sure. He needs a new link. Hang on. Okay. Is he having trouble? I think he might be having trouble with the camera. I'll tell him to change his browser. Okay. I mean, I think it's amazing that these people don't stop after the first time someone was raped. It'd be like, oh, whoops, well, we tried that experiment and it didn't work, so let's go back. Demi Minor, a trans woman jailed for murdering her foster father, got 2 women inmates pregnant in a New Jersey women's prison this year. Oh my God. I can't believe this is going on. I really can't believe this is going on. Oh, what's this now?
Hi, my name is Teresa Johnson. My sister is Tamikia Johnson. She's currently incarcerated at Central California Women Facility, and she currently has been there for 10 years. She's younger than I am by 5 years. She's my baby sister. We grew up with our parents in home. We had a great childhood. She played basketball. She was very smart. She still is smart. She's very, very smart. She was a 911 operator for a few years. She worked for the Housing Authority for a few years. She went to Dominguez on a scholarship for basketball. She played basketball there, and that's when she finished her career, and then she went on to be a CHP officer. She was a model extraordinary CHP officer. She started off programs there. She taught there. She did everything that they expected of her.
Oh, this is the one who killed her husband.
Well, from day one, I felt betrayed by California. I felt like they knew I was a survivor of domestic violence. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that. And instead of treating me like a victim of domestic violence, I got treated like a criminal. And I was harshly charged. I was harshly sentenced.
In California, male inmates are being housed in women's prisons based on their self-declared gender identity. Most of these men are abusers, and most still have their penises. Tamika is one of 5 plaintiffs suing the California Department of Corrections to overturn a law that enables this.
She was housed with a male inmate, which was abusing women while he was on the outside. And he was biological a male, and he had some violent and abusive towards females. She was housed there with him by WF sergeants for knowing that he was a violent man. It was a joke that they put my sister in there with him to see how long she would last, even though they all knew she was a CHP officer and that she was a survivor of domestic violence.
they say that I'll be able to live a normal, healthy lifestyle. And my first regular general population cell is to be housed with a vicious and dangerous biological male inmate.
God.
And for me to find out from one of the sergeants later that that was done on purpose, as a bet, as a joke, to see how long a former police officer could last in that type of environment was like devastating to me.
So this really, the first few years of her being there and hearing these stories and her anxiety and panic attacks and things that she went through, being scared for her life, and she felt that the guards, didn't have her best safety at interest. It really tore our family apart, to hear these stories, knowing that when she went in there, she was a victim of domestic violence.
I feel like I can't trust anybody. No one cares about my interests. No one cares about my mental health. No one cares about my safety. So my whole quality of life is damaged. I have physical symptoms. I have emotional distress, panic, anxiety attacks. I'm triggered by different things, and I have nightmares and insomnia, and I'm totally affected. I've never felt like this before. Even when I was living with my abusive husband, I've never felt like I feel today.
She still is up against the wall and still fighting for her safety, as currently they have nearly 10 to 15 more to 30 more men housed there. She's fighting against that, so she can continue to have her life, her safety, her health, and her mental well-being. She has a 14-year-old daughter that follows in her footsteps as far as education. She's a straight A student. She is currently playing basketball. She's in high school, her first year. It's kind of hard to raise a teenager. Not alone, my niece was 4 years old when she went inside.
Oh,
To raise
God.
a teenager by visitation, by phone calls, and letters, and for them to still have that bond, that is extraordinary, to show that the love is unconditionally between my sister and her daughter and our family.
So when I found that Wolf was creating this space for us to talk and air our grievances and be vulnerable and join a part of a lawsuit that would help protect me and other women, this is the only group, it was like Kevin said, it was the only group of people who cared, who listened, who worked diligently to hear me out and carry out something tangible that can help me.
I want to thank everyone, without me getting too emotional, for taking your time and everything out of your life to listen to my story and my sister's story and anyone that's speaking on her behalf.
Dr. John Euler, thanks for being here today. We were just watching this this incredible story of this woman who's been incarcerated in a women's prison in California, and she was housed with a huge violent biological man.
Correct.
She's joined a lawsuit now. This is Tamika's story. She's joined a lawsuit now to sue. But welcome to the program. I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm sorry you were having technical difficulties with connecting. But I was telling the audience about you. Why don't you give us a little background on how you got into doing what you do, and then we'll talk about the issues at hand. But I'd love to hear more about you.
Megan, and again, my apologies for running late. I'm hopefully a better clinician than I am a technician, as it were. But
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to be on. And yeah, the horrible, horrible situation going on. I'm speaking to these issues because I've been a therapist for about 30 years, a full range of clinical settings, including hospital settings. That's when I learned, or that's how I learned about trauma. That had been outside of the scope of my own personal experience. So until you see somebody that has been horrifically sexually abused, you don't know the impact. Worked then with my career can be broken down into thirds. Working with sexual abuse survivors, kids in the system, really the most difficult of cases, what are called severely emotionally disturbed kids. And then I was recruited by the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. I spent a little over 11 years on psych staff, started the nation's first intensive treatment program in long-term solitary confinement. Through that, accrued, here's one of my records. I accrued more clinical contact hours than any single prison psychology staff member in the US or Canada. That'll get you, that and a cup of coffee will get you, or 25 cents. But headed up also one of their standalone specialized forensic units for sexually violent predators, certified in the Harris Psychopathy checklist. I'm currently a certified sex offender treatment provider and also a trauma provider. Also just launched a website called unmaskingthetransmovement.com. Very excited about that. Oh, I'm telling you, that fits right into what we're talking about because we cover all facets of this diabolical movement, including putting men into women's prisons. So that's unmaskingthetransmovement.com.
I can't even believe that this is happening. It's like, okay, I'm reading this story and I'm like, okay, so he raped one woman and you didn't take him out. Then he raped 2 women and you didn't take him out. 3 women, still not enough for you. We're still just going to keep on saying that this is okay. It's incredible.
This is an agenda. It not only facilitates the dreams, as it were, of deviant men, sexually deviant men, but ultimately it fits into the trans deception, what I call the trans deception or the trans movement, because there are a number of special interests that are benefiting from this. And ultimately it's targeting vulnerable women and children. And there's a lot of money to be made. So that's one half of the continuum of special interests. The other half, which is very germane to my background, which are sexual predators. Women need to be very concerned about this movement because this represents an existential threat. Why? Because in my estimation, women represent the last barrier, the last protective barrier to children. And what is behind this movement, at least a significant part of these individuals pushing this, are pedophiles. This is a backdoor into the normalization, and eventually the legalization of pedophilia. And what porn-fueled men, one thing that is key to understanding about porn and its effects upon men. So you don't have any of this without porn. You remove porn, its influence, and those pushing it to groom and influence young people, the trans deception goes away. And what you have with these men, and I can guarantee it, and I will debate anybody, they can come on my show. I have a counseling program called Journey to Healing, Friday nights, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TECN.TV. They can come on, anybody that wants to try to defend this policy, and I can tell you this, 100% of the men that are requesting to be transferred into a women's prison will have some sort of assault on a woman, including children. And if a man assaults a child, my premise is, and I've got 14 years working with sexual predators, my premise is this, that they've also accessed, and they started with adult pornography, and it transitions into very predictable stages. And what porn does is this, and people say, I've got primarily men, of course, get pushback. Oh, Euler, what? So prior to porn, there wasn't any. No, the issue is deviance. That's been with us for throughout human history. I'll define deviance in a moment, but deviance is the issue. Deviant men are no longer normal. Quite frankly, they are psychopaths. You have 2 kinds of psychopaths, a bloody psychopath and a white-collar psychopath. Where do we find white-collar psychopaths? All over the place.
In Congress.
Hello, absolutely. Bill Clinton.
In the White House.
Okay, 100%.
Right? On school boards.
Everywhere.
I have run into a white-collar psychopaths in my line of work more often than you would want to.
That's right. And for your listeners to understand a psychopath, and my contention is this: it's not nature, it's not nurture, it's not genetics. Do all those play a role? Of course. The reality is this: very few researchers have spent time behind bars. How much time have they spent? If they've done about 3 hours, it takes a long time to be able to interview a guy. So you're going to take at face value one of the world's greatest liars and deceivers, a psychopath.
Right.
It takes a long time to affect, not that you can't derive meaningful information, but there are three characteristics. They have no conscience, and that's the key. You override your conscience long enough, and you will. Once you override your conscience long enough, and this is male and female, by the way, but you override your conscience long enough, you will no longer be sorry for what you do. Therefore, there's no remorse, and you won't care about the impact it has upon someone else. Therefore, empathy. So no conscience, no remorse, no empathy. Now, you layer that with pornography for a man. Now you've supercharged the process, especially then with the internet. So it is deviance. I'll define deviance. For a man, sex and sexuality progresses downward if he gives himself over to selfishness and violates his conscience. It moves from attraction to lust to power and control. Now and through objectification into a twisting effect. It's very real and it's plottable, meaning you can chart it out, and it will match the degree and quality and kind of pornography into deviance. And it will match also narcissism, then sociopathy and psychopathy. A psychopath is one that is a sexual deviant by nature. How can I say that? Definitively, the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections does its own evaluations and assessments. I've done hundreds of those, parole evals and sex offender psych evals, as well as risk assessments. For anybody that has a high-risk offense and anybody that harms a child is a high-risk offender, they are given a secondary assessment by what's called the Sex Offender Assessment Board. I had been offered to go on that board as far as being an evaluator. By nature, that evaluation includes the hair psychopathy checklist. I'm certified in that, the PCLR. So by virtue of the assessment they use, they are acknowledging anybody that harms a child is a psychopath. Someone that is into sexual deviance is no longer into the relationship or moving towards that person because of attraction or lust. They're moving towards having an impact, a negative impact. So sexual deviance is not about attraction. It's not even about lust. It is now about having a negative effect. And with a child, and it eventually moves downward. And the dirty little secret about pedophiles is the vast majority of them have gotten into bestiality porn prior to child porn.
Ugh.
That's how, oh, absolutely. That's how deviant
That's
these
about
guys are.
dehumanizing
100%.
children, I'm sure.
And
I'm
it's
sure
about
of it.
scarring and marring the soul. So you have men that are going into prisons. It is not it's
Talk
nothing
about
to do with
scarring. Talk about scarring and marring the soul when it comes to pornography, because I make this argument with people. I tell people like that porn is dangerous to you. It
100%.
is not safe. And I realize I'm a free speech advocate. I can understand the argument for it on a free speech level, but it's one of those things that's like, it might be legal, but it is dangerous. So you should not use it. You should choose to look away. Tell me about the scarring and the marring of the soul, because that's very interesting to me.
There you go. That's actually the scarring and the marring of the soul of the victims, especially of children, because a deviant man is driven to have a negative impact. The impact of pornography on a man's mind is measurable in terms of there's been brain scans, but in terms of the soul of a man, I have on my website, there's another website, survivorsupport.net. You can find a lot of information under the Insights tab. I've put together, there's one tab called Porn and Dark Deviance. There's another one on porn addiction versus predation. I spent years working with very dangerous men that have done heinous things, and I can tell you this, and my work with and my relationship, my professional relationship with Judith Riesman, who was the one to uncover and unmask Kinsey. She was the first one to really see how dangerous it's a slippery slope.
For people who don't know, Kinsey actually used an actual child predator
Correct.
to experiment on children, to do
Multiple.
his experiments on children. Yeah. Used
Yes.
known sexual predators to hurt children for his research. It's so sick, and that people continue to use Kinsey as some kind of model for science or for it's disgusting.
Yeah, and most people, to show you the extent to which we've been influenced by Kinsey, by the way, so the father of the sexual revolution in the 50s, is most people believe children are sexual at birth. Where did we hear that? Where did we get that phrase? That was from Kinsey. That's a justification for what? That's an invitation to, quote unquote, explore. Who's going to be exploring a child? So there's a lot of urban myths and urban legends. As a matter of fact, they can go on to another site that I have to find the urban legends. That would be churchprotect.org. Church Protect, no space or underscore between those two words, churchprotect.org. A lot of my clinical work is on there. You can look at the myths of predators. There's a lot of information that I derived during my time, because we've been sold a bill of goods such as hurt people, meaning somebody that's been hurt. These guys, a lot of us have been sold a bill of goods as far as, well, these guys are quote unquote acting out, they're reenacting their own sexual trauma at the same age that they were perped on. That is a lie. People need to understand that. That is a lie. Now, is there child upon child and therefore somebody grows up to be reactive? Correct. But there's a paper trail. And those are the ones that everybody understands. When the guy's arrested, people say, I knew that guy was a creep. Those are not the ones that we are concerned about. The ones we're concerned about are the sophisticated pedophiles that by the time they're arrested, nobody can figure it. Not him, because he was in a position of responsibility, of authority, of trust. He was the pastor. He was the teacher. He was the psychologist, the judge, right? Those guys were never, did not come out of abusive backgrounds. How do we know? Because they're too emotionally stable. And in the PCLR, it's a great instrument, except it's missing a couple pieces, because it will say that psychopaths are impulsive. They are not. There's a number of them are, of course, that they are antisocial. That is not true. Of course, some are antisocial.
You remember that Penn State, wasn't it the coach?
Sandusky.
Sandusky, he was an incredible predator.
That's right.
He preyed on probably hundreds before he was caught.
That's right. So people need to understand that it is a myth with the sophisticated predators. And how do I define that? Those that shocked everybody by the time they were busted and had hundreds of victims. And they're usually in positions in terms of their career or job as a mandated reporter. Isn't that interesting? So they're around kids. They seek that out. Why? Because it's cat and mouse. Half the fun for Predator is playing good people for fools. And that's why this drag queen story hour, furries, people need to understand that. Adults dressing up in big costume, like mascot-like costumes. First time I ever heard about furries was while on site staff doing sex offender treatment from a heinous pedophile who was arrested in a sting situation, who had a bunch of handcuffs and leashes, and he was going to do horrible things to these young kids. So he was busted. He's the one that told me about furries. I'd never heard about furries. What is that? He says, Euler, you need to really get a life, get out. I said, what? He said, that's one of our favorite grooming methods. And I said, what is this? He says, you cannot believe if you simply dress up. Now, these are men. If you simply dress up, parents will hand their kids over to you. Furries allows 100% of identity to be concealed, 100%. Now, with these men going into prison,
need to know too, the furry thing. These kids are getting into that because it looks like, a fun like cosplay thing. But what we're seeing is at these furry conventions, you now have kids and adults mingling together in this unsupervised thing. It's not okay. Furry is a fetish, by the way. It's a sexual thing. And to let your kid even dabble in furry, like I see a lot of these kids in my kids' school wearing ears and tails and doing the artwork
groomed.
And stuff. Yeah, they're being groomed.
They're being groomed. Right. The kid doesn't know it.
I tried to tell
100%.
I tried to tell one of the moms, I was like, this is not okay. And it's nothing that she's doing. She's not doing anything wrong.
That's right.
She's getting into some kind of thing on YouTube, or not YouTube, on the internet, like a Reddit group, on all these groups where they're grooming them into this. Kids they're innocent. They love cats or they love dogs. And so they think that and they're imaginative, right? She didn't believe me. She didn't believe me.
Because we don't want to believe. And who can, right? Once you start to see how deviant the stuff, how deviant these people are and how active they are in hunting. It rocks your world. Your world will be changed. Now, we don't want to become jaded. I don't fear that there's a perp behind every rock, but I'll tell you what, the stuff I know now, what do I know now? Well, you spend enough time, 14 years working with sex offenders. The stuff I know now, unbelievable. I work with everybody's worst nightmare. As a matter of fact, I
I
worked with
can't
the
even
worst of the
imagine.
worst.
I
Hannibal
can't even
Lecter's,
imagine what
the
that's
Hannibal
like.
Lecters, the men that chop up body parts, they were my clients. And that's what's so funny about,
What is that like to sit in a room with
oh,
someone
it'll
like
change
that?
you. It's absolutely
Tell me
surreal.
about it.
It's like Ted Bundy. Dobson had about 3 hours with Ted Bundy. Great interview. 3 hours. That was one day for me. I spent weeks and years. The only thing I am not at this point, I will, is published, right? And that's the only thing that the perps and perps apologists, especially on Twitter, they just throw that up. Euler, where's your peer review? I've got better than peer review. I've got professional peer review. You go on Church Protect under the Miss tab, then you'll start to see some of the feedback I received from my work. It was novel work, meaning nobody had ever done it before. That's why they had to hire out from the prison system without in the prison system, because all the psychology stuff, they were kind of go on strike, so to speak. So there I was working with these guys, chopped up body parts, prostitutes' body parts. And that's why it's so, people need to understand. And so the challenge I throw out to any administrator or any lawmaker in the States, in Canada, any province, anywhere around the world, you come on my program on live TV, or I will come on yours. You pay for that. Okay. But I challenge you because I'm telling you.
Busted has a good question here. And also, like Give Her Wings on Rumble. Thanks so much for that huge Rumble rant. She sent a $50 Rumble rant and has been having problems with Google Canada. Says, I swear Google Canada is such a pain in the caboose. Blocked me, warned me, and I finally got it. All right, you got past Google. Good for you, like Give Her Wings. But anyway, this is a good question. What's the biggest warning sign you see in those types of people?
As a matter of fact, let me finish my challenge, because this is super important, that I challenge anyone to show me that the men that are requesting to be transferred into women's prisons are not a danger to the women, because I will show you, you allow me to go through enough records in any prison system, and I will show you that 100%, let me emphasize it again, or prove me wrong, 100% of the men that are requesting to be transferred into women's prisons have harmed women at some point in time in the past, typically sexually. I have 2 men right now in my sex offender treatment group. I'm almost up to 40 men, 2 of whom on paper look like they've never committed a sexual offense. Why? Because they can plead their case down to look like simple assault. So unless you go into a deep dive, and that's why the stats show, only 50% of these men are sex offenders. Yeah, because the rest have done the horse trading, the plea deal, and they're laughing at the public.
Hey, look at this. Look at this. So I was reading from that UK Guardian article, and look, even they, after telling us that that there's all these terrible rapes going on, look what they did. Look what they did. Not all trans women detainees are sexual predators, adds
Of
Bone.
course.
While some begin their transition in custody, others have identified as women for years, as if that makes it better. Others still just want out of the harshness of men's lockups and to spend their double-digit sentences in the company of women, she adds.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Why do they get that? Like, why are they entitled to that?
Well,
how come
because
they're criminals
it's available.
and they should be in jail?
Of course they should.
I mean, this is a guy here who raped several women in Illinois.
Yep.
This one murdered her father and got 2 women inmates pregnant in New Jersey.
His father, by the way.
Oh, sorry, his father. Sorry, right. They're still using
He's a guy.
her.
He's
they're
a guy.
using
that's right.
Look
it's
at
all
this.
Propaganda.
They're using her for this guy who got people pregnant.
That's
like,
right.
It's absurd.
I'll tell you what, if that guy came into my office when I was in the prison and he wanted to transfer, I'd say this: who are you kidding? Who are you kidding? You know exactly what you're going to do. Listen, I had actual trans on my caseload because I also headed up the last institution in Pennsylvania that I was at. I oversaw the special needs unit. That's where these guys are put. Okay, the actual trans, and this is something people don't understand or wouldn't know. Okay. The actual trans, and by the way, there are no trans people. Let me say this again, and I'll tell you why. There are no trans people. There are sexually confused people. There's male and female. That's it. XXXY chromosomes, 0.00001% of intersex stuff. 30 years I've never dealt with, and I've dealt with the most challenging of cases in a bazillion different settings, never once come across an intersex. It's rare, super, super rare. This is a grand scheme. People need to understand that. Prior to the year 2005, the trans movement never existed. This is contrived. It is the world's largest scam, scheme, and psychological ruse. People need to understand it. You want to debate, you come on my program. It's a lie.
It is a lie.
Placing
No, it is a
women
lie.
and children in danger. This is a scam. You look at the stats, and it's not until the DSM-5, okay, the psychological Bible, they changed a diagnosis to allow for teens to then be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and that's when the billing started. So in 2013, this thing became profitable. Prior to that, there were no admissions for this stuff. Now,
and it's amazing how many strides they've made in such a short period of time. We've got little girls being medicalized at 3,000% increase from ever before having so-called gender dysphoria, getting medicalized and sent down this path to mutilation, self-mutilation. There's no other way to put it. I know some people don't like me using that word.
Oh, I don't
but
care.
There's no other way to use it. There's no other way to say it.
Megan, you're 100% correct. Listen, parents need to understand this. Guaranteed. It's a moving sidewalk. People need to understand why I'm so passionate. My kids are grown. I could retire. I don't have to do this. But I know it's a lie. So it's a man-made lie. There are no trans anything. Okay, they're male and female that are confused. These kids, about 80% of the trans movement are the victims of all this. These are severely emotionally disturbed kids. These are very troubled kids that are being exploited, and they're being ultimately, a lot of them.
And they're only troubled because their teachers are telling them or confusing them about who they are.
That's right.
You said, my son, I always give people this example because it's so simple when you're dealing with children. I have 2 girls and a little boy. My boy is the youngest. So, of course, when he came along, the house was full of girls' things, right? Girls' costumes, princess dresses, girls' stuff everywhere. When he was 3 years old, I heard a bunch of laughing upstairs, and I go up there to see what's going on. My daughters have him running around in a princess dress.
Mine too.
He's like 3 or 4 years old, and he's having a ball, and I'm like, and they're laughing at him, and I'm like, all right, now what's going on? What are you doing? And they're like, well, he wanted to dress up and he's running around in this dress. And I say to him, do you want to wear this dress or do you want a costume? Do you want a cool costume? And he's like, I want a costume. I want to dress up. I want to play dress up. I'm like, great. I'm going to make you the coolest king costume that I can come up with. And I did. I made him with a cape and it had fur on it, and I had a big crown, and I gave him a sword, and then I bought a bunch of cool costumes for him. I bought fireman costumes and I bought police costumes. That kid never looked at another princess dress again. He had an astronaut costume he used to run around in constantly. But I mean, it's that simple. You don't just because your son puts on a dress, you don't say, well, we should start calling you Mary and she, her now, I guess. Like, I guess we need to get down to the gender clinic because there's something wrong. They're 3.
That's right. Megan, I remember my kid, almost the same scenario. My daughter dresses my son up. I look out, he's running around the yard in one of her little ballet,
Sisters are
tutu,
terrible,
right? But then he's got his cowboy boots on. And he's doing his cap guns. It's like, and he had his little cowboy hat on.
In a tutu with the guns.
It's like, okay,
I love it.
Right, but what I tell people is this: in terms of child development, kids will not have a sexualized thought until hormones kick in.
Right.
They just won't. It doesn't work. If you have a child that has a sexualized thought prior to puberty, then they've been influenced or groomed from the outside.
This is what I tell people all the time.
100%.
It's not normal for a child to behave sexually or to talk about sex. It's not normal for any child. One of my favorite based lesbians has an Instagram account. She was just on there. Somebody had asked her, do you tell your child about, because she's single, she has like a girlfriend, do you tell your 4-year-old or whatever about your relationship? Her answer was no. No, and we don't hide, but we don't do anything inappropriate in front of a child because that's wrong. You don't introduce complex ideas into the minds of children. You let them ask you questions. And I have this is my rule for everything when it comes to sex and kids. You wait until they say to you, where do babies come from? And sometimes you don't want to go too much into detail. You just want to answer the question they asked. You just say, where do babies, mommies and daddies make babies? And sometimes they go, okay. And they run around and then they're done. You know,
That's
you
right.
don't give
That's
them
right.
too much information until they're ready to process it. This thing about going for kindergartners and teaching them about pleasure-based sex. Oh my God.
It's sexual
John,
grooming.
it's
sexual grooming.
abuse. It's
Okay,
abuse.
people need to understand this. The books that are being pushed by those that are associated with the trans deception, if one of my sex offender, if one of the guys in my sex
One of
offender
my
treatment,
sex offenders, that
I
sounds
know,
really
I'm
funny.
so warped now. It does. It's scary, right? Okay, if one,
That's really funny.
Okay, cut time. We'll take a step back.
We'll edit that out. Don't
yeah,
worry.
Thank you very much. Okay, if one of the men in my sex offender treatment groups were to be found in possession, this is literally true, were to be found in possession of any of these books that are being pushed to these kids, that have the drawings of these kids doing sexual things with each other, they would be violated out of group and sent back to prison.
Oh, if you were a stranger on the street and you showed that to a child in a park, you would be charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
Thank you very much. And
But if
corrupting
you're
the
a
morals.
teacher,
There you go.
if you're a teacher, you can literally, I'm sorry, chat, I'm going to do it to you. I'm going to do it to you, audience. I can't not do it when we're talking about this this content. But if you're a teacher, you can just put this up in front of your kid and the
There it
kids in your
is.
class, and this is perfectly fine. This is perfectly fine. Oh no, it isn't. This
Okay.
is not okay.
Megan, go back to that previous screen. And I want to ask parents, see the upper right-hand corner? What's happening there? Oral sex. That is being shown. This picture. Now,
Here, I have
the
a
question is,
close-up.
right? The parents, I want everybody to think about this question as you're staring at this. Are you more offended that Megan just showed this, or are you offended that this is being shown to your kids?
Mm-hmm.
We need to get over the shock value because
I know
people
every
are
time I
grooming
put it
our
up, people
kids.
are like, my eyes.
Right.
I'm like,
Well, grow up.
I
I have
realize
no
you don't want to see it. I don't want to see it.
But
John
the
doesn't
kids are
want to
being
see it.
shown this.
Your children are seeing this. Your children are seeing it. And I'm telling you, it is so sick. It is so sick. We have to continue to expose it because
That's right.
this is not okay. This is exactly the kind of thing that every pedophile dreams of showing a kid to
100%.
break down their barriers, to
100%.
break, right? I mean, how many child sex offenders have you dealt with, John?
Hundreds.
And what do you think? So I'm going back to that question in the chat. It was, what are some of the biggest red flags, the warning signs for predators like this?
Right. One of the red flags online, because they're all over online, you look for some guy that's going to hide his identity, and some guy that has an unusual interest in defending pornography and pushing back against the idea that the trans deception is sexualizing kids. Now, that's online. In person, what you look for is a guy that seems unusually interested in being around other people's kids. Now, let me qualify that statement. Okay,
It's
in
so
this
tough,
sense.
though, for men to then ever be, coaches or anything else without.
Correct.
Because we've had some fantastic,
Correct.
little league coaches, and I sometimes feel really bad for men who just love kids and
That's
want
right.
to help, and then but I'm sure they're always thinking that parents are always thinking,
They had better be. Now,
Ah.
here's the difference, though. It's the man who wants to be alone with somebody else's kids. How did the Boy Scouts end up with over 100,000 victims because of overnight
Yeah.
campouts? with a scoutmaster. I used to be a part of Boy Scouts. I didn't get very far because I didn't really like sleeping on the ground and, trying to figure out why am I sleeping on pine cones and stuff. This isn't all that comfortable. Okay, but anyways,
It's not your jam, huh?
but predators, I'll tell you, the number one hunting ground for predators they love are faith-based communities or churches. That's sort of my background. I was a youth director. Now looking back, if I'd been a perp, I did overnights with these kids. It exhausted me, but no parents were there.
Yeah.
So first of all,
did,
parents.
my youth group, we did overnights all the time. We
know it.
even once stayed in hotels. We stayed in a hotel for a conference, and the only people watching us were our youth pastor and his wife, and they
Sure.
were in a different hotel room. Like anything could have gone on. Like
Correct.
nothing did. But I mean, you're right. I mean, churches. It's tough because you want to have those experiences with the kids, right? You want to have that sense of community, and like the overnights can be really fun. But how in the world do you just have to do better with these chaperoning?
Yeah.
Period.
And since the internet and since phones, I caution anybody about doing overnights anymore.
Yeah.
You better have enough adults. If you don't have enough adults, do not have the activity. And I say to parents, no more slumber parties. Those days are over. How many perps did I deal with that the neighbor kids, that these perps, these stepdads were accessing somebody else's kids or their own stepkid. Okay,
That's so sad.
and porn
I have a
underlies all this
rule.
stuff.
I have a rule with my kids. Sleepovers were pretty rare, and the only ones they were ever allowed to do were at my house or with people we knew very well. Like
Right.
we knew the parents, both parents, very well, and they weren't allowed to go until they were of an age to tell us, if something had happened, and we wouldn't have these, conversations. But you're right. In today's day and age, it's very tough. My daughter, I'm always thrilled that my daughter's best friend, her father is um, a law officer who is just one of the greatest guys I know. Her father, so I always feel really good about sending her there because this guy hates sex offenders so much. He's locked up so many of them. We have all kinds of fun conversations about that. But it's tough because it's not like you trust many people. You have to really know a person. You have to really know them to trust them with your children. And it's very, very difficult. Very difficult.
That's right. So that would be really the first indicator. Do you have a man that shows an unusual degree of interest in somebody else's kids? Now, again, so that we don't become paranoid, but the goal is not to become jaded. The goal is to become discerning and adequately protective. Okay? Because predators know us better than we know them. Why? Because my theory, my contention is they once had a conscience. They now have dispensed with their conscience over time, violating it incrementally. They've reached a point where they have no conscience. And for those of us with a conscience, so that's why they are psychopaths. So anybody that harms a child is a psychopath. And speaking of faith-based, no wonder why Jesus said, if you even think about harming a child, you notice he didn't fault the right. And what is a millstone? The Greek word was. That's right. Okay, the Greek word was scandalon. We get in English scandalize. So what a powerful word picture. He's saying this. What you're about to do, the stuff you're thinking about doing, you're going to place around the neck of that young person something that it's called a stumbling block, that they will stumble over the rest of their life. The vast majority of people that have a very difficult time with quote unquote religion, those have been traumatized. You traumatize a child, you sexually cross boundaries, they will stumble over that
This is a millstone
issue for the rest of their lives. There you go.
This is how big it is. Imagine tying one of those around your neck and throwing you into the ocean. That's what Jesus said should be done. Look how huge, look how heavy. You know what would happen? You'd go right to the bottom of the ocean.
That's right. Now, the question is this: did it need to be that big, and how deep of a body of water? No, that shows you that's visceral. People think that Jesus never got angry. Oh, no, he got angry about the right things. And what he was saying is to the would-be perp, basically this: don't you even. Okay.
So you know what's interesting about the millstone argument from Jesus is that was actually a Roman torture method. So that was a way to execute people that the Romans used. Josephus Flavius wrote about it, and it was absolutely brutal. And the fact that Jesus himself would be like, yeah, I agree with the Romans. Like, put that.
100%.
I agree with the Romans. So that it shows you there's a time for that type of punishment, and the time is when people harm children. Look at what I just saw on Twitter the other day. So I got to show you this because this pissed me off like nothing else I've seen in a long time.
Good.
I have no patience for people who claim to be conservative and ignore blatant child grooming, and that's what this is. Let me pull it up. Where did I put it? Someone said on Twitter, conservatives have better things to do, more things to do, and more important things to do than get after Rihanna for what she did at the NFL Super Bowl. And I said, absolutely not. That's false. Because what she did was touch herself and smell her finger on
Oh my God.
television.
See, I didn't even watch it. I'm glad
Oh.
you told me that. Really? Well, I'll tell you what, whoever is going to write that, my response is this. Law enforcement needs to investigate that guy's electronics, online activity, financial records, and phones, GPS. Simple as that.
It can't be. It is absolutely there. Let me just be very clear. There is nothing more important for conservative people to do than stand between children and those who would groom them sexually. And Rihanna is guilty. And I don't care that she's a mother and that she has her own children. That makes me want to say damn her even more, because she has children and she would do that in front of your child. That makes her a groomer. That makes her disgusting. And we need to point it out. And it's not unimportant. It is not. It's actually very important to say, especially because people are always saying, oh, well, you only care about this because it's gay people doing this. Oh, no, I don't. I have a problem with anyone who wants to put sexuality and sex in front of my kids. And everyone knows that children watch the Super Bowl. My son is 8 years old, and I don't let him watch the Super Bowl halftime show. Never, because I'm not stupid. But it really bothers me that I can't let him watch it because here it is. She said, actually, as a conservative, we have larger, more important issues to tackle instead of Rihanna. And I said, no, false. Adults not respecting the sexual boundaries of children is the most pressing problem we have. And the NFL needs to honor those families who tune in with all ages and stop this degeneracy and grooming, because it's gross. And there's no bigger issue than protecting children, conservatives. Do not let anyone tell you that complaining about what these people are doing is a problem. It's not they're the problem, and they need to stop it. And the NFL needs to know we don't want this.
Right, and that same person would then no doubt defend pornography because they have no clue what happens to men and their minds with pornography. They just don't care. And they don't care that kids are being groomed into, for instance, a big portion of this sexualization of kids in schools that goes part and parcel with the trans deception is the legitimization and normalization of prostitution. That's how you end up trafficking kids. And how do I know? Look at the stats and look at the men that I've dealt with. Okay, pornography always, prostitution. Prostitution, again, is all about deviance. Only deviant men are going to access prostitutes. How do I know? Because they're taking a woman who's obviously not doing it because she has no other, has best of career options, and they are able to use women for sexual gratification. That is a man that's already into objectification. Are we dealing with a normal man? No, a normal man would ask her, what are you doing? And do you need financial help? No, he's going to exploit her. So any man that can objectify is already on the pathway toward sexual deviance. Megan, to finish up the issue of men and women's prisons, here's what people also need to know, because it's such a vital issue and it fits all together with this, because my contention is this, and it's the reality. No man thinks it's a reasonable proposition, pardon the pun, no man thinks it's reasonable to dress in women's underwear and drag unless they've saturated their minds in thousands of hours of porn in this day and age. They are sexually deviant. Therefore, you don't know what they're all about. Porn causes a man to become malevolent towards women. That's why they have no problem putting their hands around the throat of a woman. We used to call that sexual assault. 50 Shades of Grey is what used to happen in the Middle Ages to extract information from people. Any woman that dates a guy that is into pornography, especially 50 Shades of Grey, is inviting pain into her life, certainly assault, by one degree or another, stay away from any guy that's into kink, any guy that's into fetishes. Fetishes are nothing more than perversion. You're dealing with very dangerous men, and the ones that want to go into women's prisons, the quote unquote true trans, and I already qualified that statement, they don't want to go to women's prisons. Why? Because these are men that typically were into prostitution and they like the male attention. So guess where they stay? They stay in the male institutions. How do I know? I had 4 of them on my caseload, and I'm the only psych staff in the US that stood up to defend a trans inmate, by the way. So it's not the true trans guys. Again, I take issue with that term, but just using it. The true trans don't want to be transferred to women's prisons. They like the attention. They're given
Because
special attention anyways.
They're considered homosexual
That's right.
transsexuals.
That's
There's
right.
a difference between homosexual, transsexual, and autogynephilia. Are the men that you're treating and the men that you see that are doing this, would you say 100% they are autogynephilic?
Well, I even sort of reject that term. Now, I'm
interesting.
Blanchard, right? I'm familiar with it, and I'm okay since it's become part of the vernacular. Okay, what you're dealing with an AGP, okay, is really a sexually deviant guy that's getting aroused. He's getting off on picturing himself as a woman. He's getting off on the woman that he's becoming. Okay,
And
but
getting
it's
into women's spaces, though. I think
that's
they
it.
also get off on
100
that.
Okay, 100%. As a matter of fact, only predators are going to want to go into women's and children's private spaces. How can I say that? One easy way to show this to be a reality is look at online the pictures of people that are taking pictures of themselves in the opposite sex restrooms. How many women dressed
Women
as
don't
guys?
do this.
There you go. It's only the
Women do
guys
not do this.
taking a
I've
picture.
had the same problem. It's like if you are in a women's bathroom and you are not going to the bathroom or washing your hands or doing your makeup and you're taking pictures of yourself, there's something wrong. We don't do that. I've literally never taken a selfie in a public bathroom in my life. There would
There
be
you
no
go.
reason, and it's also extremely upsetting for anyone in a ladies' room to have anyone else with a camera out. Like, we wouldn't do that. Everybody's very sensitive. Women are very sensitive to, like, cameras in public bathrooms. That would freak us out. We've heard stories about hidden
right.
cameras where no one's going to take. We're not going to take our cameras out when there's in a bathroom. Why?
And that's why they're doing it, Megan. That's why.
Exactly.
Okay, men and women's sports, it's not for the medals. They're toying with the women. This is cat and mouse. Because they've developed a malevolence, it's to prevent the women from being able to win. But they don't care. These guys don't care. Like Leela Thomas, I'd love to have him come on my program. He and I can have a little chat.
I can't.
Okay,
I cannot stand him.
Okay, the goal is he wants to go into it's the locker rooms, it's the showers. That's what these guys are all about, and they will always have their cell phone cameras with them. So the men that want to go into the private spaces, including the prisons, it's all about traumatizing women, and they're going to have, in that case, they're going to have access to the women, and they're going to rape them.
Cynthia's got a great question. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. She says, thoughts on travel sports teams and what you're saying to that. This weekend, my 14-year-old girl will be in DC for a volleyball tournament. 4 girls to a room, 2 chaperones who I don't know with their own room. Only way to be a D1 athlete. That's true. Can you go, Cynthia? Can you go with? I would go with. I would probably volunteer to be a chaperone. I've done those school trips, by the way. But I've gone. They usually allow parents to go. My daughter went on a 6th grade trip to Philadelphia, and it was fantastic. But I went, and I was actually one of the chaperones, and we shared a room together. They allowed me and my daughter to be together with with her friend and her friend's mom together, all of us together. So I thought that was perfectly safe. But I mean, what would you say, John?
Probably what you said. I mean, right? This is so horrible what's happened in our society. But let me ask you this, to any parent. There's no easy answer. I mean, my kids are grown. I have a daughter and 2 boys now, all in their mid to late 20s. But are those kids going to, so let's say that even the adults are safe. Okay. Are those kids going to have cell phones with them? Of course. Internet access, of course. You tell me. With those 4, do you think one of them are going to have unfiltered access to the internet?
Oh, yeah, probably. And
Yeah,
I tell my daughter, of course, I have these conversations with the parents also of where there's sleepovers or whatever, but the parents that of the kids where she does have a sleepover occasionally, they're all in agreement with me. We don't allow phones and digital devices at sleepovers. It's not allowed. So they're not allowed to have it,
good,
period.
good.
And that's at my house, whether they're at my house or at another house, that's off the table. And my explanation for that is for to the kids is, hey, you guys are having a sleepover. This is for games between the two of you. It's not for making phone calls to anybody else. You're going to watch movies together. You're going to have snacks. This is not about doing anything online. It's about enjoying each other's company, period. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So far, so good. Haven't had any issues. My kids are pretty well trained as far as letting me know if anything, and they haven't. None of their friends. We haven't had this problem. But then again, we're also in a pretty small community with, these are Catholic school friends, and their parents are pretty severe as I am. We're all pretty strict.
You're protective. It's such a challenge. Is there an easy answer that parents just have to be vigilant, but also just assume? Because look, everything. What I tell people is the perps and the advertisements, they're all coming towards your kids. We have to assume our kids have seen stuff, but if we don't help them process what they're seeing, if we don't help them understand what healthy sexuality is versus not, and the dangers of predators, then we're setting them up to be sitting ducks for predators, because predators will do whatever they need to do to access kids. They love playing good people for fools. They love, and they're methodical and they're patient. People need to understand that they are driven not because of attraction. This minor attracted persons, it's a bunch of crap. Okay, nobody who perps on a kid is attracted to the kid. Okay, they are driven to defile and mar and scar the soul of the kid. They want to leave a lasting impact, a negative lasting
God,
impact,
that's
sealing
sick.
innocence.
So
Of
what you're
course it is.
saying is like they're sadists.
Correct.
Uh, Fubar
Correct.
Temp, this is a good question. Do you ever work with any female pedophiles? These like the teachers who are, sleeping with younger male students. There are a lot of those, and they are kind of harder to identify. This is a very good point. Like I see these women and I think, what is wrong with you? Like for one, women are naturally supposed to be the protectors of children, and something has broken down for women to be able to take part in this kind of and it's probably it's probably porn addictions. Women have these porn addictions too, and porn is bad for you. But do you treat women sex offenders?
I don't, not that I wouldn't, but my population's been men. But because I understand the population of women, I can surmise, and typically very few women sexually offend. In the state of Pennsylvania, which is the fourth largest prison system, I believe, because you have Florida, Texas, California, and then Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is, I think, the oldest prison system. It's the most cutting edge. I think you now have 25. You used to have 27. So 25 prisons, only 2 are for women. So that's of all offenses, of course. Okay, so you see the percentage is very small. Very, very few women sexually offend. Very few. It usually comes down to 2 camps. One, kind of like the drug mules, they were influenced, they were facilitating, so they were useful idiots. That's not a pejorative term. Rare. So you have that kind. You also have the kind that was facilitating it. So that's either the female pimps or the Ghislaine Maxwell's with the Epstein. Rare is the time, people need to understand this, rare is the time, it's almost unheard of, that a woman rapes a young child and uses an object. Rare as I don't even know if I know of a case. The majority of the ones that we hear of, so you have other women that traffic women. So think about those that have no alien status or no green card. They bring these women over. They work in massage parlors, so to speak, right? They are human trafficking. It's a lot of times it's women that are the pimps. It's surreal, but they're also oftentimes working with guys. But oftentimes it's the developmentally stuck woman. I'm not defending it. She needs to do time, but you look at the majority of the cases that you'll tend to hear that the young person is either in high school or maybe junior high, rarely underneath that. Now, I'm not defending it, but big difference. You go below puberty, you're in a different category.
I actually know a woman who's in jail. I grew up with her, who got over 50 years in prison for sexually abusing her 4-year-old. And I
Yeah.
can't even. I grew up with this woman. I can't wrap my head around it. I read the charges. She was charged with trafficking a child across state lines. There wasn't a ton of information, but it sounded like they had her agreeing to bring her child to
Yeah.
a hotel to some man and engaged uh, in abuse with this man against her child. And I'm
There you go. She probably held the child down.
I
See,
can't even. I
that's
can't.
oftentimes, yeah, that's oftentimes the case. Why? Because you either have drug
Drugs. I
situations
think drugs.
or lured into like a cult-like relationship.
Yeah.
Very often
I think it
that's
was
the
drugs
case.
personally.
Yeah.
Delio Turk says, thanks for the super chat, by the way. Any advice for helping or rehabilitating men struggling with sexual deviance? Can they be rehabilitated? Is there rehabilitation for these men?
These are the guys that I deal with all the time. Here's my own perspective. Without a faith-based perspective, there's no hope. First of all, with pedophiles, there's no hope. Now, how do I approach these
None
guys?
at all. None at all. For
No.
pedophiles,
No.
it's a. See, I didn't think so either.
Right. Now,
I don't know.
let me qualify that, because here I work with them. Do I actually say that? If any of them are listening, what I would say is, don't be one of them. You always want, from a human perspective, we always want to believe there's hope, and for safety's sake, for society, for no future victims, I proceed always the same. My contention is this: it's always a violation of conscience, and therefore you have to get their conscience back. If a guy's gone too far, then his conscience is gone. His brain has become psychopathic. You can Google as far as the brain scans of psychopaths. They are different, according to Robert Hare of the PCLR. I agree. There's no coming back. James Fallon has done a pretty good job as well. Okay,
so you cannot rehabilitate once you've changed your brain. You can't change it back.
And the way it processes, no. And that's what's scary. As a matter of fact, in Romans chapter 1, with the reprobate mind, people need to understand that. Okay, the reprobate mind, most of us, if we're familiar with that in Romans chapter 1, we've come to equate, isn't he? Right? We've come to equate reprobate with sexual. It's not. Now, layer that with sexuality. But the term reprobate comes from metallurgy. It means it's no longer useful for its intended purpose. What is the intended purpose of the human mind? It's different than the gray matter and the white matter and the IQ points. A pedophile, his brain still, the IQ points are still the same, right? Now he's affected it with porn, but the way the mind operates, the mind of a psychopath, you look at the processing and where it lights up and heats up in the brain. A psychopath does not have activity in the brain where conscience and empathy and remorse should be when looking at different pictures in a spontaneous fashion before your mind can engage, your brain can engage. But there'll be a lot of activity in the occipital, the back of the brain, the occipital region. That's where analysis takes place. Psychopaths manage the impression you have of them. They're working the crowd. That's why they're politicians, by the way, or they're on Wall Street. Okay, and that's why my contention has become they're narcissists first. You go through narcissism into sociopathy, which is sales, by the way, cost-benefit analysis. When the cost gets too much and it outweighs the benefit, they'll move on. But they will take their money and run. It's like the song, The Gambler, you need to know when to hold them, fold them, walk away and run. Okay, that's a sociopath. A psychopath won't do that. A psychopath will continue because now it's cat and mouse, and they're driven to have the last word, last say, last laugh, and a negative impact upon you. If you dare put boundaries up with a psychopath versus a sociopath, and you can have both populations in a prison, they're all sitting there, you'll know the psychopaths for the sociopaths, because the sociopaths are freaked out by the psychopaths, the statements that come out of the psychopath's mouth. That's what's so beneficial about working in a prison that you would never get with 3 hours going into a prison and having an interview with these guys. Plus, if they interview pedophiles, what researchers don't understand, and I would not have understood this prior to working the prison system, is this. It's a lengthy process to interview somebody in a prison system. And the most dangerous position to be in is to be a pedophile in a prison. That is very true. So why is somebody going to volunteer? Because there are no secrets in jail. Everybody's going to know who signed up, because unless you want to talk to a specific pedophile, there's a request. I'd like to talk to 5 pedophiles. I'm a researcher for Penn State. Okay, it goes through central office. It goes down to the local institution. Now, word is put out on the block one way or the other. Well, that's not a good thing. So the question is, well, who
yeah, right.
volunteers?
Right.
Okay, right. So somebody's going to write a research article says we have definitive firsthand information. We sat down with pedophiles in prison. How did you sit down with them? You had to go through a process. You had about 3 hours each. Who did you get? Well, the prison provided them. Well, who did they provide? The guys that signed up. Who's going to sign up? Only those that have enough protection. How do they have enough protection? Through the unit management or up the security chain. How do they do that? They've given up goods, so they're adequately protected. So what the researcher doesn't understand is when they're sitting in front of the researcher thinks they're getting inside information. They don't know the pedophile's working them. It's practice for parole.
Oh boy.
That's what researchers don't know. Now, is it that researchers can't derive? So no, they can. But if you think you're going to get accurate information as far as motivations from the world's greatest liars within 3 hours, you're a fool, because they know everything you're going to print is going to make its way to parole. But these perps are interested, and agenda-driven researchers are interested in influencing laws and legislation and sentencing structures, just like Benjamin Levine was head of the Ontario education system.
Who the hell is working for better sentencing structures for pedophiles?
For them, they get off easy. That's what they want, because they know, every pedophile knows this. It's all about security for them, meaning they know it's only a matter of time. Possibly you go in that direction, now you're playing the odds. If you get busted, you want to make sure you're going to get out as soon as possible, or maybe diverted to treatment. Benjamin Levine was the Secretary of Education for Ontario, the province of Ontario up in Canada. He was the one to push the sexual orientation, gender identity, all the perp crap onto kids, the stuff that we're seeing through the trans deception. It turned out he was a heinous pedophile. Well, he was able to get out of prison early. Why? Because of the influence. He was able to strategically, and this is what they do, they strategically use this to change public opinion. They influence then the lawmakers, and the lawmakers push laws and policies that go easy on. It switches sympathies from the victims to the perpetrators. So he was able to get out early because policies had been changed, because he was able to change the sentiments of people. So he benefited. He knew if he got busted, and that's the only reason why these MAPs, it's a deceptive term, minor attracted persons, the only reason they're going to go to treatment is as an insurance policy in case they get busted, because then they can ask their therapist to stand up in court for them. It's all a ruse. And the one thing, James Cantor and others that want to say that, oh, these guys are minor attracted, the one thing these therapists will never ask the guys is about their porn use. And I had James Cantor, I challenged him. He's starting to run his mouth online. He's the world's greatest researcher on what? Pedophiles. Really, that's a very interesting sector. I say this, unless you can monitor this guy 24/7, you're a fool if you think you've got definitive information. I asked him, oh, really? So you think what you're getting is, yep, I know exactly. They're being honest. Oh, okay. So
I mean,
virtuous pedophile, non-offending. How do you know?
Yeah, they don't. There's no way. And I'm reading a book.
Yeah.
I
No.
started reading a book about the BTK. It was his autobiography that was written by
Correct.
him and the researcher, psychologist that was forensic psychologist that was interviewing him over a long period of time. But even then, even still, as I read it, I'm like, this is bullshit. This
Correct.
tells me nothing about
Correct.
this man is a liar. That's what he is. He's a liar. And we learn nothing from this. The only thing I have learned from it so far is that this man, in his mind, associates his victims with food, with delicious, tasty food, which
Right.
I probably believe that. That's probably the only thing about it that I believe is that he viewed his victims as things to be devoured. I absolutely would believe that.
That's
part
right.
of it.
And he was demon possessed. He called it like factor X. And that's the
Factor
one thing the
X, yeah.
psychology staff in psychology in the prison system, understandably, but they will never, because they can't. But I've heard it too much from different inmates that have harmed people, that something came over them. They're still responsible, but you toy with this stuff, you will invite more than you bargained for. I've heard
So
it
you
from
think
too
he
many
was
men.
demon possessed?
100%. Watch the tape. You watch the tape of his interview. He actually says it. He says, you know what? I'm not sure, because I've watched that interview. with the, you know, the live through the camera
Yeah.
feed.
I
It's
would
on
believe
YouTube.
you. I mean, I'm a Catholic, for crying out loud. We have
Yeah.
exorcists
No,
for this.
what he says
We have
in that back
exorcists
and
for
forth
these things. I
dialogue,
would believe you.
right? It's very interesting. I even show that to some of the
That
sex
actually
offenders.
makes more sense to me
Yeah.
than anything I read in that book, because here's the thing, she acknowledges this factor X thing, right? She
Yeah.
acknowledges it and mentions that Jeffrey Dahmer said something very similar.
Correct.
Dahmer said, you know, it was just this like internal hunger thing that they can't shut off. It was
Correct.
just something that would build up and build up and build up, right? A lot of them say that same thing.
Correct.
So I would actually believe that. I hadn't even considered
Oh,
it, but that
yeah.
makes more sense. Tell me
As a matter
about
of
the
fact,
video.
here,
Which video that you've seen of him?
the interview where they have him, actually the psychologist that goes in. So it's on YouTube. I have snippets of that for my sex offender treatment guys. And so we analyze it. Also, Richard Ramirez, the Hillside Strangler.
Oh God, he's the Night Stalker.
Night Stalker, I'm sorry.
And
Correct.
I always tell people the media is so complicit in this by naming him the Night Stalker, this incredibly scary, sexy name. You know, they should have called him the creeping coward or something, because that Night Stalker name is just like.
But two very different backgrounds. BTK killer was attended a church on a regular basis,
and he had a very good childhood, a very nice childhood.
There you go. That's
no
exactly
abuse.
right.
No
That's
abuse,
exactly right.
which
Same
is
thing with,
incredible to me. No, how? And he developed his weird fetishes with bondage at a very early age.
Correct.
A
It's
very
pornography.
early age.
It's pornography.
He said he did. Well, it wasn't technically pornography. I don't think it was like those detective magazines.
It's
that they had.
pornography.
Is
Right,
it pornography?
because what's happened with the detective, I couldn't believe it. As a matter of fact, in the sex offender treatment unit, the high intensity sexually violent predator one, at SEI Crescent before they shut that down. So I'm in charge of treatment for a year, and the librarian would come in. So these guys, it's a self-contained unit, but they would still have access to the library. Well, the librarian would come in with big carts, and so I said, and these guys are all in open air cubicles. Okay, so they're not behind bars. The whole thing is behind bars, of course, but it's what they call TCs.
Uh-oh. We're losing you there for a second.
But it's like,
I think you're. Hold on, your Wi-Fi is being a little weird.
Desk, which is L.
Uh-oh.
Am I good?
You sound like
Am
a
I
robot. I think you're coming back now. Let's try again. I heard
okay, there we go.
I heard open air containment.
Okay, there you go. So in that particular unit, 65 bed, it looked like they had dividers in an open concept for an office space, how the dividers, okay, so you kind of have these makeshift little spaces. So from the officer's desk, you can look over all the 65 guys and you can see what they're doing. Well,
yeah, they call that a pod, right? Isn't that the pod? The way they do the
or
pods
pod can
now?
be euphemistic for also the housing unit. But this particular one, so the dividers are about maybe 4 feet high. Okay. So it's their own quote unquote living space, but it's 2 per person in that situation. But what's interesting is you can see what they're doing. You can see what's on their TV. And you can see what they're reading, whatever they're reading. So you can walk up and down the aisles. So all of a sudden I'm walking up and down one time and I'm seeing these guys with almost looked like Harlequin romance. And I'm just kind of, so I asked one guy, and I saw on the cover, it shows a woman being drowned in a bathtub.
Holy crap.
Okay, this is a high intensity sex offender treatment unit. And so I look and I said, hey, what's going on? He says, oh, I'm just reading. I said, really? So I'm looking at the cover and I said, I said, what's that? Oh, it's a detective book. I said, really? Do you read these off? Oh, yeah. I said, Dan, what's going on in this? Oh, you know. Yeah, I knew. Okay,
murder.
So the snuff stuff, so snuff novels, these guys get off on that. That's the process of deviance.
Who is writing these? So here's the thing. BTK said, Dennis Rader says that he had these thoughts of bondage and stuff before he ever saw a detective magazine. And because he describes in the book the moment he saw one and saw pictures of women that he had been imagining exactly like that. And he claims he never saw it before. When he had these, he says the very first time that he saw a woman struggle and I guess got turned on by it, he was only like 10 years old and his mother got her hand stuck in the couch, got her ring stuck on a spring, and he had to go run and get for help.
Okay, no, he's lying through his teeth. With that,
I know,
he's lying through. He's just lying through his teeth.
I don't believe
No.
him.
And why
He
are you
must
why are
have
you going
seen it.
right?
No
But you,
child
no,
has images of women tied up in their
no,
mind.
he's lying through his teeth because he doesn't want to admit, and that's what's so interesting. They don't want to admit that there's a corresponding relationship or a connection between what they were into and the kind of porn they progress. There's stages of pornography. It used to be, and people, pro porn perps get in debates with me and they say, "Oh, Euler, how do you define porn?" I know, Playboy. Oh, that's entertainment. Yeah, look how far you've fallen. Okay. Playboy should be considered still pornography, and the paper version way back in the day. So what I would say to any guy is this: if you're looking at anything equivalent to Playboy or worse, the old-fashioned Playboys, then you're looking at pornography. Now the question, and one of the things that I work with my guys is, unless they can tell me, this is kind of what they have to do, unless they can help their offense make sense in terms of their pornography, what they were into, they're not getting out.
These are the
Because
magazines.
it's always pornography. Now, there you go.
These are the types
Okay.
of magazines that the BTK was talking about.
Now, what's interesting is Robert Hare, during our training, he said that the two populations, as far as careers that are filled with psychopaths, but again, I would say they're filled everywhere. But it's interesting that he pointed out in his research, psychology and law enforcement. Now, I think the reason why, now, how big of a study did he do? I don't know. But they love instant power and control. Just like those that are arsonists, and a lot of arsonists, a case could be made, a lot of them are abused. The three indicators of severe abuse are enuresis and capricis, wetting and soiling oneself, cruelty to animals, and fire setting. So a lot of arsonists, you will find abuse in their background, sexual abuse. And they'll go back to the scene. Well, what are these guys doing? Very few, I divide the camps of sex offenders into this. The sophisticated versus impulsive. And the sophisticated ones are the ones that everybody is surprised by. If you're a sophisticated predator, you are not sexually abused, because that presupposes that a child can be sexually abused and so contain his or her emotions that nobody notices and there's no paper trail, no acting out one way or the other. That is implausible. If you have a child that's been perped on, they're either going to act in or act out. A third grade kid, you mean to tell me nobody's going to notice? My wife was a 30-year second grade school teacher. And even at that age, in retrospect, she can remember, she had to call CPS a couple times. If a child's being abused, you're going to see behavioral changes. What we're being told, what we're being sold, this idea of minor attracted persons, by the time the guy was busted, that he tries to say, oh, he was depressed. That's a lie. He had mental health issues. Really? Prove it. You show me your past mental health records. They never do. They say, well, I don't have them. Oh, so I'm supposed to take your word at it. But these guys will never acknowledge, and in order of, in terms of the ones that will, but they'll never volunteer. A sex offender will never volunteer how much porn they were using. And 100%, people need to understand this, 100% of all sex offenders were deeply steeped in porn prior to offending. I would say probably since the 70s. Now, you'll still have people say, oh, so you think it's porn. What about prior to porn? Isn't that interesting? We're still doing that dance. We're going to defend and rationalize and justify. What I say is, again, and people need to hear this, it's not porn. Okay, it's deviance. Deviance causes offending. What is a deviant? Somebody that wants to have a negative impact upon you, a lasting negative impact. Now, you will supercharge the process of deviance. There's about 10 stages downward. You will supercharge that process, meaning now we're going down fast through porn and the internet. So ever since porn and the internet, you will not find it. You find it for me and you send it to me. Okay? You will not have a sex offense devoid of pornography, and 100% of pedophiles, 100% without exceptions. I had all the records, Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. 100% of pedophiles are deeply steeped in child rape pornography prior to offending, and 98, 99% are also busted. So they're busted with child rape pornography. They're also busted with the dissemination or distribution. They're passing it along. This is how deviant these guys, and the vast majority of pedophiles, I would say 100% of them, but the vast majority of them were into bestiality first. That's where the furries come in, the anthropomorphic stuff. So this is how vile child sex offenders are. They get off on raping kids. They're no longer normal. Their brains are psychopathic.
The chat is a little confused because they've heard your answer to pedophiles. Pedophiles are nearly impossible, if not impossible, to rehab. What about other sex offenders? Because they're asking, well, if they're impossible to rehab, then what kind of treatment can you give? How do you give them treatment if the rehab is almost impossible? And do you see rehabilitation in maybe other types of sex offenders?
Yes, I see rehabilitation, other kind of sex offenders. How do I approach this? I always want to believe there's hope. So I have guys right now that have harmed children. How do I approach it? The same. Who knows? Could somebody offend a child and not be? That's why, I'm always going to approach the guys the same. My approach is this. There's typical components in sex offender treatment. You're going to have family background issues. You're going to look at anger management issues. But if your treatment does not involve issues dealing with moral development, character development, and spiritual development, then it's futile. Because I have not worked with a guy, and I've worked with a lot of criminally insane individuals. Okay, somebody that can't tell the difference between right and wrong is very consistent. Those are the ones also that walk around virtually with the tinfoil hat. Okay. But if somebody pulled the blinds down or looked both ways before committing an offense, they were not crazy. Why? Because they're wanting to make sure they're not busted. Somebody that truly is criminally insane cannot, and therefore they will not distinguish between doing stuff in the light and doing stuff in the dark. They're criminally insane. They cannot differentiate. So the issue is conscience. I always hope that guys are, but when I read their offense, I know probably what I'm dealing with. But I'm always going for conscience, and I haven't met any guys. I've worked with a lot of guys. So we'll say 99.9% of the guys knew the difference between right and wrong. Therefore, it's not a lack of information. It's not they need a change of behavior. It's not cognitive behavioral. All of sex offender treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy. We get at the the beliefs, the mistaken notions, and all that. But it's not that they didn't know it. So I still have those components, and it's important to provide awareness into their thinking.
If you still understand the difference between right and wrong, is there some hope then to rehabilitate the conscience to start listening to what is right and choosing to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing? There must be some way. If you still recognize it, it's kind of still there, right?
No, because a psychopath can recognize the difference between right and wrong,
and it doesn't matter.
They don't care. As a matter of fact, they develop a disdain for it.
God,
it's very interesting.
Look, this kind of leads into one of the questions in the chat, which was, what is it with women in true crime? Why are you all so into it? And I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Because women are generally the victims of this type of crime, right? This type of heinous sexual violence and murder. I mean, there's a part of, and it's not that men are not victims also, because there are lots of men who are victims of crimes. But I think for women, it's particularly scary because, we have it ingrained. I don't know how men feel, because I'm not a man, but we have it ingrained in us from the beginning of time. Our existence, that we must always be looking over our shoulders for that guy who's going to throw you into a trunk and torture you to death. I mean, it's just a thing that we have to be aware of, right? I don't know how much men spend thinking about this before they go get their keys and walk to their car, or before they, I mean, you don't. And so, but women though, think about it every single time we are in a parking lot. Every single time. And think about how many times you go to the store. Think about how many times you drive at night. Every single time I'm on the highway at night, the thought goes through my head, if someone bumps you, don't pull over. Remember, if someone's flagging you down, don't pull over. Like, there's all these things. And maybe some of us get a little obsessed with it because we don't want to die violently. Okay. That's why.
There you go.
It's because I'm afraid of dying by the hand of some violent maniac. And I want to know how to spot them. I want to know. And I feel like, you know what, Dr. John, I feel like I'm never going to be able to do it. I feel like
that's right.
they're too good at what they do. And I've
That's right.
watched so many documentaries on these people. I've investigated some of these stories, and I think, nope, I wouldn't have known. Even as alert as I think I am, if a psychopath is out to get you, they're probably going to.
There you go. And Megan, and by the way, I don't have a doctorate. I appreciate that. I have a master's in this line of work. With how many detractors, I need to be very careful. So
Oh, sorry, that was my fault.
I appreciate it. You've given me a promotion or an advancement, but I just, because the naysayers, I can just
I've
hear it.
given
If I
you an
didn't call,
honorary title.
that's right.
Hey,
because
Dr. Jill does it. I don't know why anybody else can't.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of detractors, right? If I hadn't qualified that, people would say, "Oh, Euler, you allowed them to think you're
Yes.
doctorate."
Sorry. Doesn't have a doctorate.
No, but the guys that are looking at you're right, Megan. I concur 100% that women are trying to figure out, how can I, what happened to her, so I can learn from that, so I don't do that. Guys here's the deviant guys. Any guy that's into any sort of snuff or slasher stuff. First of all, women, if you see any guy into that, stay far away from them. As well as, here's the precursor to it, is kink or BDSM or 50 Shades of Grey. They sell it now at Walmart as entertainment. I was doing sex offender treatment that morning. It happened to come out, 50 Shades of Grey. I'd never heard of the novel, written by a woman. Scary.
Scary.
I never heard of it. Right? It's
especially weird because it was actually Twilight fan fiction, which that's how it started, was a vampire fan fiction, which is just bizarre.
See, but it's all dark, deviant. You're going to see with that stuff, deviant sexuality. It all merges into very dark stuff. So there I am. I'm doing sex offender treatment group. I hear this being advertised. It was launched on, the opening film was Valentine's Day, which was so ironic. I couldn't believe it. Well, I throw out to the guys. So there I am. Talk about a field research study. So I'm doing sex offender treatment in SEI Somerset, Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. The group room is right across from my office. I would do charting and it's just so, I had to know over the 11 years, what drove me is to figure out, how does a guy become a woman or a child's worst nightmare? Because I work with survivors. The other psych staff, bless their hearts, they weren't all that driven to know. They would just 8 in the gate, get in, do their stuff, get out. But I was driven to know. So I'm working with these guys, and I said, hey, are you guys familiar with this 50 Shades of Grey? I'd forgotten that on the block, they have regular cable TV as well, so they get commercials. Okay, so they all knew it was coming out. I said, what do you guys think about it? Now, to do research on sex offenders properly, it can really only be done in prison. I would not have believed that. But now that I know what I know, because you have to make yourself you have to be able to observe them 24/7. You have to be able to go into all their stuff. You need to be able to shake down their cell. You need to be able to see what they're looking at on TV, record their phone calls, all their communications, all their everything, in order to see what these guys are doing. They're the world's greatest liars. So really, nowhere else are you going to be able to do a 24/7 observation of these guys. So they come in, and what they said was this, in essence, they never thought they would see that grooming would become so easy, because now the women are grooming themselves. Because now a woman cannot discern between sexual assault and quote unquote kink. See, a woman thinks, and when they go to the movies, so use this as a screening method, ladies. Now you got to fake it. I casually ask them, hey, what do you think about this movie, right? If a guy is not aghast, and not so much so that he looks at you like, I don't want to deal with you, but if you see anything other than a little concern on his face, stay away from him. Why? Because for a guy to begin to get into that stuff, he has progressed through a lot of pornography. And he's no longer normal at that point. He thinks it's a reasonable proposition to cause you harm instead of treat you in a precious manner. That's a scary guy already. And this idea that, so first of all, the sex offenders would say, Mr. Euler, if we had known that was so easy, he said, we would have handed books out like that to these women. So the women's minds have been scripted. If a woman goes to that movie, she thinks, if you ask her typically, what was the movie about? She'll be able to tell you. She'll tell you the themes. She'll tell you the storyline. Most guys, if you ask them what it's about, I don't know. Basic difference between male or female, but the male mind, if it's being shaped and scripted by deviance, supercharged by porn, he's becoming very different. Ladies, do you really want a guy that thinks it's a reasonable option to put his hand around your throat?
Dr. Drew talked about this years ago, and I remember being so happy he said it, because he had that show with Adam Carolla where they took calls about sex and stuff, and they kept getting these calls. It was many years ago. I want to say this was more than 15 years ago. They kept getting calls from women who would ask them if it was normal if that their boyfriends wanted to have anal sex with them. And
It's horrible.
one of them was 15 years old. And I will never forget Dr. Drew's response to her, because this 15-year-old calls him and says, I don't want to do this. And my boyfriend wants me to do it. And I don't feel like I should have to do it. And he got so upset, righteously so, and said, listen, what is happening here? Oh yeah, it was called Love Line. What was happening here is that your boyfriend and all men, all boys are getting corrupted by pornography.
Here we go.
And he said, what's scary about this, and he said it so long ago and it's come true. He said, what's scary about this is that it will only go one place, and it will lead to violence and death. He said that, and he got so much crap. People were like, you're out of your mind. And he said, no, because it continues to get more and more degenerate. It's using women violently on camera, and then these men become to think that this is normal, and that this is the way that people behave in the bedroom. And it isn't. It's not. It's not normal in any way. And they hadn't even gotten into the choking stuff at that point. It was just beginning. And he said way back then, this is going to lead to nothing but violence and death. And this is not something that anyone should be playing around with. And I agree with him 100%. I keep telling people, like, look, porn is bad for you. It
100%.
corrupts the actual sexual relation that's supposed to be between men and women. It corrupts it completely to something else that is bad. And it is infecting even the conservative side of the aisle, who is supposed to be, the more religious, the more conservative of traditional family values. It is corrupting the men on our side, who are now, and I believe, I just wrote about the misogyny on the right, and I'm telling you, it probably comes from porn, because
100% it does.
These are men who will not control their own porn addictions, and then they actually start to think that it is okay to treat women and talk about women as objects for their own pleasure, and that they're worthless, totally worthless. You will hear so many men who claim to be conservative, who are in this space, or libertarian, who will talk about women as hitting the wall when they hit 25. You know what that means? That means you've watched too much porn. That's what that means, because a woman's value is not in her sexual attraction. And if you think that a woman's value is wrapped up in her sexual attraction, you're sick. There's something wrong with your brain, because women and men have equal value as human beings, period. Human beings. You don't need to assign a value to someone because of their sexual attraction. That's absurd. And how come these men that say that never do the same thing to themselves? They don't assign that same value to themselves. It's only women that they see like this. And where did they get this idea? Porn.
That's right. Megan, what I say to any woman is this: do not subject yourself to anal sex.
God, no. Never.
Okay, do not.
No.
As a matter of fact, it used to be, right? It used to be this.
I tell people all the time.
Right?
This is, I tell people, I warn them, this is you can have a medical emergency if you do something like that. I've researched, by the way, in my journalism, I actually, the first time Rush Limbaugh ever read one of my articles, it was because I put together these, something nobody ever had before, which was a study about the anal cancer that was becoming the new HIV in the gay community in California. And there was another study that nobody put the two together. So there's these articles about, anal cancer is the new HIV. Well, there was another study that was done that said that HPV, which causes the anal cancer, is primarily spread through anal sex. Well, they wouldn't put it together in the LA Times or whatever article it was. I did. So the actual medical research is saying now the gay community is suffering from anal cancer, and they wouldn't tell people that it was the anal sex distributing the HPV that's causing it, and people are dying. See, this is a thing that they won't even tell you. Not to mention prolapses, horrible infections from tears. If you tear the lining of that cavity, you are introducing waste into your blood system. Do you know you can die from that? I have told people this over and over again. It is not a joke. And this is why it pisses me off that feminists run around calling themselves sex positive and teaching teenagers in Vogue, teen Vogue, that your daughter should be your 15-year-old. This is how a 15-year-old girl should be having anal sex. Excuse me? No. Stop it. It's ridiculous. No one should be doing it. No one.
100%. Now, let me qualify. Megan, I can hear it already. Oh, you guys are anti. No, what I tell people is this. I'm not anti anything. Of course, no, I'm not anti anything. I am pro the protection of women and children. If somebody's going to run their mouth, okay,
and men, by the way, because you're going to get cancer if you keep it up. And I know plenty of gay men who are not into anal sex. You do not have to be into anal sex. You just don't. This is not something you must do. And telling children that this is how it is done is absolutely criminal.
That's right. Women need to understand any guy that wants to do anal is already into porn. He's already deviant. Okay, we've heard this term. Just right. We hear this term vanilla sex. Okay, what is that? World of 31 flavors of vanilla sex.
That's the thing I like.
Okay, have somebody define that. Oh, you know, the missionary position. Oh, you mean the only position? No, are there other positions? Track with me, right? The people that I talk to. So, the only position that you can have direct eye contact with your partner, you demean that. The one that actually makes it personal, you demean that. The one that, if the eyes are the window of the soul, where you have intimacy, you demean that. Why? Because you can't. Because if you have any vestige of conscience left, you're bothered. So anal sex, how much eye-to-eye contact? In kink, how much eye-to-eye contact? Kink is simply abuse that's somehow just, kink shaming, 100% yes. Anybody that wants to debate
100% yes. I love you. I'm a kink shamer too.
Here's the question.
I will shame you for your kink all day long.
And there's a real strong, I don't even know now these days, right? Kink therapist and gender therapist. Gender therapist, there's no such thing, by the way. It's a marketing scam.
Of course.
Okay? Gender therapists.
It's always about making money.
But gender therapists are dealing with what age? Typically teens. Why are they kink therapists? They wed them together, so to speak. They're introducing the deviant sex. They're setting these young kids, primarily girls, because the trans deception, when we had gender confusion, it used to be boys. Not very often, but used to be boys. But now it's 80%, 85% are all these girls. Why? Because girls are being freaked out, negatively impacted by porn. So they have one of two options. They say, I'm either going to have to be a porn star and be anally raped, or forget that deal. I'm going to Safe Haven. Well, Safe Harbor. Well, they think the trans deception plus 80 to 85%.
I totally blame pornography for the
100%.
Girls who want to transition. I totally
100%.
blame it, because who the hell would want to be a girl these days if you were told that to be a straight girl, you have to get anally raped, like you said.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm very clear with my teenagers, because I have 2 teenage daughters. I am very clear with them. This is not something you should ever take part in. I have told them this is not okay. It is not okay. And anyone who asks you for this should get scratched right off the list. It's a no-go.
And women need to understand, I've studied the minds of the men that would ask them. You do not want to deal with a man, okay? I'm a certified sex offender treatment professional. I have a research and clinical combined when they used to give that out through ATSA, the Association of the Treatment of Sexual Abusers. It took, I believe, 3,000 clinical contact hours to be considered, and it had to be, your application would go in front of their board. Mine was somewhat fast-tracked, not because they did a deficient job, but I had over 12,000 clinical contact hours. I'm telling you, there's not a sex offender that I haven't dealt with in terms of category. I understand the deviant sexual mind of men. Why? Because I work with them. I'm telling ladies, any man that suggests to you do anal has already been steeped in thousands of hours of progressive pornography. He's not normal at this point.
There's
Now,
nobody, but who is? For God's sake, are there men left?
I still risk believing there are, but the question
God,
is,
I
where are you
hope
going to
so.
find? Where are you going to find them? You're
I'm
certainly not
so
going to find them at
concerned.
bars.
I'm so concerned for my daughters.
Yes.
Well, perhaps the
Yes.
auto parts shop, ladies. We've been having a
Okay,
conversation about where to
okay,
find
that's right.
where to
Right,
find
but
where
we
to
can
find good men.
we can
The
probably
bookstore,
okay. Here's now you
church,
still need to be
maybe.
careful. There you go.
Although
Faith-based.
Dennis Rader was a deacon.
That's why you have to be careful. But listen, think about the bell-shaped curve. The question is, you're looking for a guy that has. We're talking morals. Now, where's going to be a place where it increases the likelihood of the pool of men that may be moral? Well, you'll start with the outside of the bell-shaped curve. You're not going to probably find guys in bars or nightclubs that have any morals. So I'd probably recommend not there. If you guys into hookups, you're probably not going to find it there. So you
I
start
like
to lower.
blind dates. I
Okay.
personally think setting up friends is always a good
There's
idea.
that's a great thing. And here's the deal.
That's how I met my husband.
Okay, and keep sex and sexuality out of it. Screen the guy. How do you screen them? First of all, online stuff is so risky.
So risky. Look, I've got a certified person here telling me that what I told you is absolutely correct.
Oh, yeah.
Dating apps are not only dangerous, but they're ineffective.
Oh, they're perfect for predators. 100% perfect for predators. That's where the predators go. Now, what hope is there for women? It's slim, but listen, I don't want women to lose. I have a daughter. Now, she's married now, but what I would tell her is this, or any woman. First of all, I'm pretty faith-based, so you got to involve God in the process. Okay, but go where it increases the likelihood that at least a guy is going to visibly be aligning and ascribing to moral values. But psychopaths are in church all the time. 2 Peter chapter 2, written 2,000 years ago, talks about wolves in the flock or in church. Okay, so you have to be discerning. Don't be jaded, but don't take it. There we go. Now,
like serpents.
Keep the issue of sex and sexuality out of your dating for a long period of time. Save sex, old-fashioned thing, but I'll tell you what.
That is a good way to weed out the weirdos.
Right?
Because the weirdos will not stick around for it. They will not wait. They will not
100%,
wait.
right?
Most of the time. I'm not saying it's 100%. Some of them will, but
that's right.
But most
self-control.
Most of them don't have that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you so much for being here, John. I feel like we could talk all day, but I have to go because I have my dog has to go to the groomers today. The actual dog groomers. Not some weird sex groomers, but he has to go to the groomers because we can't even, he's shedding so badly. I have this German Shepherd and oh God, the hair is so bad that I've had him locked up in his room for like a week now. And I feel bad. I'm like, I keep taking him out to go outside and like leaving him there because he's like dirty. He's getting the whole house dirty. So I've got to get him to the groomers today. So that's what I'm doing. But I sure love talking to you. And I feel like you have a lot more stories that I need to get into. And I hope that you'll come back sometime soon.
Be more than happy to. It's been my pleasure.
All right, wonderful. Well, you take care. And thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you again soon.
There you go. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Bye-bye. All right, guys, I got to get to Free Megan's dog. All right. Well, he's out right now. He's in the house right now, dropping hair because I feel bad. He's dropping hair all over the place, like big chunks of it. And he's covered in actual dirt because it's like spring weather here for whatever reason. And he's been pounding through the mud. And I think sometimes he rolls around out there and he's like just covered in it. So he comes in and he shakes and there's just dirt everywhere. And I haven't been able to take him to the groomers because he had that terrible ear infection, which I'm still like working on. I mean, it's pretty much gone. But I got to he has an appointment today. So he's going to be all sleek and beautiful and smelling good. And he's going to get all the love-ins because when he is dirty like this and stinky, nobody can even handle him. So here's the plan. We went over the time that I wanted to go over before. I was planning on doing a locals exclusive. I'm still doing it, but let's do it tonight. So we're going to do a locals exclusive movie with Meg. We are watching. Let me show you what we're watching. It's on. Oh, great, Ellie. They roll in mud and dirt to cover their scent for predators. Well, what? There are no predators for my 110-pound German Shepherd coming after him. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There are none. Let me show you what we are going to be watching on Netflix together tonight. So if you are not a subscriber at locals, meganfox.locals.com, and you want to watch movies with me with cocktails and snacks, you got to get over there right now and sign up. It's only $5. For $5, you get more than one movie a month. $5 a month, more than one movie a month. We do entire series together. Plus, there's cooking streams, there's cleaning streams. There will be some brand new clean Archie Ruckus streams after he gets back from the groomer. How come I'm not signed in to Netflix? I hate it when that happens. Keep me signed in, Mac. Come on, Mac. All right, here we go. We are going to watch. I gotta share screen. Ah, do this. I'm gonna get hit with a copyright if they. Hold on, I gotta turn the volume off. Gosh darn it, Netflix. All right, hold on. Confession tapes. I think it's called confession tapes. Let me pull it up. Confession? Yes, the confession tapes. I gotta turn the volume off though. For God's sake, Netflix. All right, you know what? I can't pull it up because I can't get the volume to turn off. The confession tapes on Netflix. We're watching it tonight. And what it is a collection of confessions, taped confessions. I'm trying to Netflix and chill with the chat. We're totally gonna Netflix and chill. We are gonna go. We're gonna watch the confession tapes. Now, these are taped confessions where police basically framed innocent people, and we're gonna watch that and scream at the screen. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm going to give you. So stay tuned for time on that. It's coming. It's gonna be tonight. If you are subscribed to my locals, you do not have to pay for it to follow and get the notifications and find out like when it's happening. All you have to do is download the locals app on your phone or your computer and then sign up to follow me at meganfox.locals.com, and you'll get all my notifications. Okay. Ellie says, buy merch for Fox's sake. I love it. I love it. I can't wait till my merch gets here. I'm so excited. So that's going to be tonight. I will let you know what time. I have to figure what I'm doing out. I have to figure something out for dinner, and then I will book it and I will put up a notification. And of course, what I do is I post a link, which is it is a link to a private StreamYard stream that has live chat. And you guys come in with me and we watch it live together. It'll be super fun. The confession tapes. Yep, it's going to be fun. It's going to be super fun. Please get in here and do that with me. So get on to locals. If you're not on locals, you can't watch. And I know you want to. And locals has been so much fun, you guys. We are having a ton of fun in there. I love my locals chat and all the locals people. Cameron says, that was a really good interview. Thank you. I adore you. Well, I adore you too. And I appreciate that you come here every day. I love that Paige said, this is fascinating. I could listen to Mr. Euler all day. We don't want to get him in trouble with his critics. Sorry, I called him a doctor. I didn't mean to. How does he stay sane during doing his work? We should ask him that next time, and we will. And also, how can crime novels be allowed in prison? That's a very good question. How? One thing, the detective novels and the detective magazines that BTK got into as pornography, I really feel like doing a deep dive on one of those sometime to see like just how depraved that really is and like how it's hiding in plain sight. Like that was back in the 1950s and 60s. So before there was like this explosion of porn, that's where the deviants were getting it, were from these detective and just looking at those magazine covers just now, I was actually blown away by how violent they were. Like, wow, every single one of those is like a drawing of a woman in some kind of distress. That obviously is like it's a call out, a dog whistle to abusers, to psychopaths. And it is really, really scary to me that this is like a common thread, and who's doing anything about it? What can we do about it? Keep your kids away from porn. Porn is not it's not healthy. It is very dangerous. It disturbs the mind. It threatens the soul. Please don't think it's harmless, because I disagree with Nick Rekieta on this all day long. Porn is not harmless. Porn leads to the destruction of the conscience, and that's what leads to all the problems that we have with violence against other people, violence against women, violence against men. It starts right there. It's disgusting, and it should stop. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Oh, do I have anything? Oh, tomorrow. Well, tomorrow, I believe Andrew from Legal Mindset said he was going to come, but I haven't heard from him yet. Maybe he's not going to come. Maybe he's not going to come on to talk about the Sydney Watson attack that he pulled the other night. I would like to talk to him because I do think that I have an argument that makes sense, that maybe he would listen to. I don't know. But I will say this, I will check with him to see if he will come tomorrow, because I would like to continue talking about what's going on in the conservative space where there's so much hatred towards women, especially women who speak up and say, "Hey, I've been abused or I've been treated poorly." I do really believe. Oh, Sue, that's so sweet. Sue says, "My prediction is that Megan will hit 50,000 in the next 6 months. Really great content. Such a decent, warm, honest lady." You know what I think? I think that I would be happy with 20. We're trying to get to 20,000 subs on YouTube, so if you haven't subscribed, please do it right now and hit that like button, please. I really appreciate you guys that you even show up here every day, or at least Monday through Wednesday, because I'm not here every day. I don't want to lie to you. I can't. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've got lots of stuff to do. Plus, um, I've got my writing to do. I've got my kids to take care of, my home to keep clean, which I'm not doing a great job of because everyone was sick, and my laundry has piled up to the sky. It's terrible. So I probably need to do another a cleaning stream soon. Hold on, I need to pull this up. Da, 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 da. You guys need to let me know on Locals, by the way, which streams are your favorite. Should we do another freezer meal stream? I feel like I really could have used that this week. I used all my freezer meals that I did on Freezer Meal Friday that we all did together. And I used them before we all got sick, and then we all got sick, and I didn't have any in the freezer. So we should probably do that again. Wouldn't that be fun? Let's do that again on Locals. So I'm going to start planning that. Maybe we'll have a planning stream on Locals where you guys can tell me what kind of meals you want to make the next time that we do a freezer meal stream. If you don't know what freezer meals are, that's where you make in like 2 to 3 hours. I think we did it in 3 hours. We made 6 to 9 meals all at once and stocked our freezers so that all we had to do in order, like for a busy day, because I have a lot of busy days, all we had to do is take something out of the freezer, dump it in a crock pot in the morning, and turn it on. Amazing, amazing. It's life changing, life changing. Okay, you guys, I love you. Oh, and by the way, oh, I forgot. Wait, I hope you're still here. Don't go. Don't go. I'm checking out Rumble to make sure you're still here. I have something for you. I can't believe I almost forgot to do this. Hold on. Hold, please. And this will end this on a positive note because we have been talking about very traumatic things right now. But I have a fun surprise. Where is it? For God's sake, Megan. Where is it? It's time for the mailbag.
You've got mail.
All right. This one is not in particularly about love, but we have been getting mail, a lot of mail since yesterday. And it turns out that the topic we were talking about about misogyny and about sexism in women and men and how men and women relate to each other. I've gotten some responses from that article that I wrote that I wanted to read to you because some of them are so good. So It says, "Good evening, Miss Fox. I am not online much. I tried to delete my Facebook page more than 10 years ago. Don't use TikTok and am basically under a rock when it comes to being connected electronically. It is a deliberate choice for various reasons. Among them is having knee-jerk sense to hold an opinion about people until we spend time together." I love this advice. Don't have a knee-jerk, reaction to a person till you spend time with them. Without personal interaction, it's so easy to pretend. I do read a lot of news, though, and I've always read your articles. You communicate accurately, clearly, fairly, and always add to my understanding. Thank you. I am with you on this. Men should protect, respect, and serve, even when and where it would not be expected or merited. Axiomatic: evil is overcome by good. God is good. All good is godly, and men are called to be godly. I will pray for you and your battle. Doesn't that just make you happy to hear that from a man? I know it makes me happy, and it gives me a lot of hope that while there are women out here who are righteous inside and who love men and who want to support them and do all the things that traditional trad conservative women do. There are also trad conservative men out there. So don't get too upset. And I have a lot more of those to read. There's plenty more. I'll save them for tomorrow because there's a bunch. So I got some really nice mail, and I just wanted to share that one with you. We'll end it on that note. I love you guys. Take care. Be nice to each other.
I was so lost, my world is near its end. I almost felt my head is full of a million choices. I am alive, I'm not here to pretend. I love my friends, my heart is filled with a million voices. Oh, this road has many choices. Oh, and my heart, million voices. Come next to me, my friend, embrace the sky. I'm not afraid to fly. It's not the time to say goodbye. I don't wanna say goodbye. No, I don't wanna say. No, I don't wanna say goodbye. No, I don't wanna say goodbye. This time I know my road is near its end. I almost felt my head is full of a million choices. I am alive, I'm not here to pretend. I love my friends, my heart is filled with a million voices. Oh, this road has many choices. And my heart, million voices. Come next to me, my friend, embrace the sky. I'm not afraid to fly. It's not the time to say goodbye. I don't wanna say goodbye. No, I don't wanna say. No, I don't wanna say goodbye. No, I don't wanna say goodbye.
So thanks, Miss Rackets.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Cheers.
So I take it that
Johnny's
you've
problem
seen
is he
Tamara
should have
John's
come
bedroom
storming
before.
in there with
Yes.
a string of
Do you
garlic
recall what
and
he
some
went
holy
into
water.
Mr. Judson
Across
Westford's
the crucifix
bedroom?
one.
May the
Do you
power of
recall,
Christ
or no,
compel you.
No, I don't.
You realized his house was infested with
Except for
succubuses.
that,
And
there's- you're looking. of what it
Yes.
Suck you, loaders.
When you arrived in the afternoon. I don't remember seeing it now.
So while she
No wonder he said drown her before you burn her.
Oh my God.
You-
Your next witness?
now I know why you wanted to drown her.
Laces.
Your
And that
next
is
witness
also
lives in
by
Romania.
video.
Is that correct?
That begins with Ms. Vasquez.